Good morning and welcome to Xiamen. We finally made it here. The competition is underway. I'm Charlie Bosco, joined, as I was in the speed climbing last week in Wujang, by Josh Levin, and I believe we can get the semi-final underway. And Josh, we've had all sorts of rain delays, but you've had a look at the routes, and the route setters have done an immense job.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been really cool to see the settings so far this week. The qualifiers yesterday were both pretty challenging for the men. We didn't see two tops from any of the climbers. But for the women, we have a 13-way tie for first. So we know the women's route today is going to be pretty brutal.
Yeah, we need some separation in the women's competition. But you were talking then about the weather and the routes and everything. But how will this affect the climbers? Like, they came here yesterday expecting to climb. They warmed up. They thought they were going to climb. They got told to wait half an hour. Then the climb was cancelled. The semi-final was cancelled. How does that affect them? Are you able to just drop in and out of that mentality?
It's really hard as a competitor to go from knowing that you're going to be competing one day and then having it be canceled due to weather and then coming back the next day and having to repeat that whole process again, especially since you've already been through that mentality already. So we'll see how the competitors adapt to that. I mean, competing on the World Cup circuit, you have to be able to adapt to whatever the situation throws at you, especially here in China with the weather and everything. But I think we'll have to really see some performances today of competitors really digging deep mentally, and that's what's going to be the difference today.
Well, let's have a look. As Josh says, it's going to add an element to it, this delays that we've had. But before we bring you today's semi-final, let's have a quick recap of the qualifiers from yesterday. Hello, welcome to Xiamen, and one of the most unique venues that the IFSC Tour visits. It's qualification day today, so to run us through the routes, here's Chief Route Setter Hiroshi Okano.
I'm Hiroshi Okano from Japan. I'm a chief route setter of this competition. So I set for the World Cup lead in Xiamen. Actually, this is the first time for me to be here, and nice place. And then, but very, very windy. But it's good for climbing because it's dry. So it's nice. For women's one, that route has a little bit bouldering section. The beginning, it's not so hard. Just you can have a feeling, a good feeling. And then in the middle part, in the overhanging part, you will see some long move. And then after that, the last section, all holes, it looks big, but a little bit intense moves. Yeah. The women too, also in the beginning is not so hard, but the route is more like endurance routes. So you have to keep going without a good rest. And then not so too very hard moves there, but very pumpy. So that two routes for the qualification is very different types of routes. For about the men one, it's a many volumes there, and then very, very technical routes because there is no good footholds there. In the beginning, there is a pushing wall, just like a bouldering. Yeah, I like that part. And then each move is not so hard, but each move is very technical. And then we put many essence in that route, like pushing or mounting, or like very, very technical one. Men's number two is more powerful. You see very big volumes, black volumes there, and very powerful, very physically intense. Not so many moves there, but each move is far and then very powerful. The two routes for the men's qualification is, different type of
And just to finish off, we have a change of schedule here in Xiamen. The semi-finals will be this evening, 5 p.m. local time. Hope to see you then. And as you will have realised at the end of that video when I said we'd be live at 5 p.m. yesterday, we did try to be live at 5 p.m. yesterday, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out due to weather. Do apologise, but we are here now roughly around the time we were scheduled to have the semi-final in the first place. And there is so much to decide here in Xiamen. The overall titles in both the men's and women's lead and men's and women's speed later on this afternoon can be decided here. This is of course the last Speed World Cup of the year, so they will be decided, but the lead titles could also be decided. Here is the start list. There are only 26 women who entered the qualifiers yesterday, so they all by default made it through into the semi-finals, but seems to be the case more often than not in women's league competitions that countback is absolutely crucial. So nobody left anything in the locker. We had a 13-way tie at the top of the order with 2 tops each. Beginning there with Meiko Taki. So big tie in the women's competition coming into this semi-final. You can see there a very familiar last 6 climbers out. Janja Garnbret should be climbing 26th in the semi-final. 13th here seals the overall title for her. And in the men's competition we had 37 entrants, which we narrowed down to 26. And as ever we're looking to narrow it down to 8 finalists. A few climbers with something to prove there after a bad week last week in Wujiang. Most of the climbers have been training in Shanghai during the week. But you see there Marcello Bombardi 17th. The Italian team have been here all week. How will that affect their preparation? We shall see. And there, 22nd and 23rd, Stefano Ghisolfi and Romain Desgrange. Interestingly enough, they were tied in the qualifying round. They didn't both top the routes. Nobody got 2 tops yesterday in the men's competition. They were hard qualifying routes. But Roman and Stefano, who are currently battling it out for the overall title, were tied in the qualifiers, just to add that extra level of intrigue to today's proceedings. And you can see there the rankings as they stand. Janja Garnbret, Jane Kim trailing her by 120 ranking points. Annette Verhoeven not quite repeating last year's heroics, currently down in 3rd place. Still a good season for her, but no World Cup win as yet. And in the men's, it's Romain Desgrange's to lose, you feel. A win here in Xiamen would seal the deal. He would be the overall champion, which would pretty much redefine the word persistence for a man that's been competing 14 years and had to wait 12 years for his first win, and now stands on the brink of an overall title. It just goes to show it's not over till you make it over. Romain Desgrange, as I say, he tied with his main rival for the overall title, Stefano Ghisolfi, in the qualifiers. Tees it up perfectly today. It's our venue here in Xiamen. We had quite a large crowd here last year. We were hoping for the same this year. I think the constant changes to the schedule have affected things slightly, but the venue is beginning to fill up as the sound of the music and the MC begin to echo around this district of Xiamen. It's an extraordinary venue. I have to say, one of my favourite venues on the tour. The walls sitting in a hole amongst shopping centres, huge towering financial centres, skyscrapers, huge residential blocks. It's an extraordinary venue for a climbing competition. And there's our first good look at the wall. The men will be on that route there, the blue on the left hand side as we look at it, and the women will be on the right on the green. And as you might have seen from earlier on, when you could see Josh and I, we couldn't be much closer to the action. There is the top of the men's route. And the action is underway. As I say, 26 men and 26 women as ever. We're looking to narrow it down to 8 finalists, and we're also simultaneously keeping everything crossed for dry weather. The forecast, some of the forecasts say it's going to rain later, some of the forecasts say it's not going to rain again. We'll wait and see. Had a bit of rain this morning. Rained quite hard around 10 o'clock, but it's completely disappeared now, and some of the route setters are up on the cherry pickers earlier. Said conditions on the wall are excellent. Still feels to me like there's a bit of humidity in the air, but they've been up there and touched the holes, and they say conditions are excellent. Yusen Baima of China is climbing on the women's route, and Min Young Lee of South Korea on the men's. Women on the right, men on the left. We're underway in Xiamen after quite an eventful day yesterday. Josh, I was chatting to some of the route setting team earlier. They were saying this women's route possibly of similar difficulty to the men's.
Yeah, it should be an interesting battle to see who comes on top of this women's route. It's going to be quite hard, as according to the setters. Men's route doesn't have to be quite as hard, so we may see a little more success on that one. But I'm sure they'll both be really difficult considering all the changes in schedule and weather affecting competitors' mentalities and preparation for this event.
It certainly adds a massive element to it. I've said it a lot this season. remains the case. Setting, I think, for the women's lead is probably the hardest ask faced by any of the setters at the IFSC this year, because you've just got this small group of 5 or 6 athletes who are perhaps slightly ahead of the field, and then really this year Janja Garnbret almost out on her own, 5 wins out of 6. It's such a hard category to set for, to find a level of difficulty that gives everyone a chance. Let's see how they've got on. I have to say the bottom of the women's route looks hard from standing right at the bottom, holding the bottom holds. Houston Beimer so far untroubled.
Yeah, she's doing a really good job so far. When we talked to the route setters yesterday, they were explaining how the women's route is pretty consistent up through maybe 1 or 2 quick draws. We just lost her there, but good fight for her. One of the things they were talking about is that the women's route gets considerably more difficult about 2 quick draws after where she got to.
So that's around the big first black triangular volume. It's a section of 3 round volumes just below. Now this is an interesting move as well on the men's route. You move out to the first of those 2 blue round volumes, and the route setters think it's actually easiest done dynamically.
Yeah, Min Young Lee, really good up-and-coming athlete. He was Asian youth champion a couple years ago.
Which, when you think of his competition, is quite an achievement, and that's how you do it. As I say, it's one of those moves. It's relatively high risk. The route setters were saying, if you've got the confidence to go dynamically, that is the way to do it. And so it proves. First climber out.
And as we can see here, you can see the quick draw swinging pretty wildly above Min Young. Shows you how crazy the conditions are here today. It was pouring rain earlier, and now it's really, really windy, although dry. So we'll see how the athletes cope with that.
Hung Ying Lee of Chinese Taipei just made her way out to the wall, not too far for her to travel, just across the straight.
And on the men's side of the route here, when we talked to the route setters yesterday, they were really talking about how it really turns on right in this section of black volumes. So we have, yep, right there. Really difficult moves right off the bat. Good fight for Min Young though.
Yeah, he got a good cheer from the crowd. We were saying with Loic Timmermans last week, sometimes the Chinese crowd, it's the first time they've seen climbing, and their favourite bit is when the climbers fall off, so I do apologise if we get the odd random shout. But it's really good. It feels like the crowds have been growing this year in China. As I say, we haven't quite got the same crowd we had in Xiamen last year, but gradually growing.
Yeah, and they're being filtered in too. They have to pass a basic security check too. But I believe this is actually Min Young's first semifinal in Lead World Cup, so really excited for him. Good to see him, and I'm sure he'll be back competing in some more semifinals next year.
Yeah, they had a good day in the qualifiers, South Korea. Of course, Jane Kim can always be relied on. But, just looking further down the women's order, Ji-won Bai will be out as well in the women's competition, and in the men's, as well as Min Young Lee. Out next, Jongwon Chon. Familiar names of bouldering viewers and lead viewers after last week in Wujiang. And then finally, Han-Woo Kim will be out 21st. So 5 South Koreans spread out across the 52 semi-finalists in the men's and women's competition. So a good day for them yesterday. Jongwon Chon, 10 metres behind us right now, just warming up as we lose Ying Lee. It's that same section entering those round black volumes. Here is Jongwon Chon. Extraordinary performance from him last week in Wujiang.
Yeah, since last week we've actually seen quite an emergence of what you can typically consider to be World Cup boulders coming onto the lead circuit, especially competitors from Korea and Japan. They really come on and shown us that, yeah, they can compete on the lead World Cup stage as well. You can see Jongwon wrestling with these first couple volumes on the slab here. The holds themselves are very small, even though the wall itself is not that steep on the volumes. So it doesn't look that it's proving to be too much of a challenge for the athletes here, but again, the volumes You can't really tell, but these Chinese volumes are actually very slippery. There's not nearly as much texture on them as you'd see typically in European volumes.
It is windy as well, and I think if the wind picks up that lower section on the men's route, you could actually see climbers being blown around, and it's such a delicate section. Could actually be a factor.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, the good thing with this slab section here, specifically on this route, is that the footholds are actually quite decent. And sometimes if you get a really difficult slab section in a World Cup, you have to really put a lot of trust in your feet on some very delicate placements. But for this route, I think it should be relatively okay, given wind.
Zhongwon 6th last time out in Wujiang. Amazing performance. Also from Tomoe Narasaki. It's been all about the boulders last week in Wujiang. What can he do here? As we mentioned last week, he's built like a lead climber. He's slim, massive power to weight ratio. See how he gets on with the dynamic move.
Got to commit here. Nice.
No problem. Yeah, Zhongwon Chon, two-time World Cup champion in the bouldering. It's not going to be taxed by moves like that. Doesn't mind a jump. Tina Johnson Hafsas of Norway underway.
Yeah, Tina's having a good season so far. She finalist in Xiamen, I believe. And quite a seasoned competitor. Competed in many European Youth Cups.
Yeah, she was 4th that time in Xiamen.
Awesome.
Also made the final in Edinburgh. So she is having an excellent season. Xiamen Chon making pretty light work of this men's route, but you can really see from the way his shirt is buffeting, the wind is quite strong, and as you climb out of the hole that the wall sits in, it just gets stronger and stronger. By the time you're at the top of the wall, it feels like a different world compared to down here at the bottom.
Yeah, he's making this volume section look pretty chill. The setters were talking about how difficult this section is, so you can just tell the level of competition here, even at the first couple climbers in semifinals, is really high still.
Yeah, I think most people would like to see Zhongwon Chon in the final, but he didn't have the best day in the qualifiers yesterday. Hard to believe it was only yesterday. It feels like there's an awful lot happened since then, with semi-final scheduled then cancelled.
He's getting pretty close to the top of the route, actually. Really good performance from him today so far.
Yeah, the route setters will be watching this somewhat nervously, you'd imagine.
Absolutely.
Got to remind themselves that this is Zhongwon Chon on the wall, who just had a bad day yesterday. Shouldn't be too nervous as if he does well. Now he's really beginning to fight, but there's the top. We had no double tops in the men's route qualifiers yesterday, and we don't yet have a men's top in the semi-finals.
Yeah, really good fight from Zhongwon there. I think a couple of more moves, if you get to that last or second to last volume before the finish, the setters were saying it's basically over at that point. So if we see a couple more moves, we'll definitely see some tops in the men's route today.
Tina Johnson through that tough section on the volumes that you were talking about. This is all uncharted territory for us. We haven't seen this section of the route being climbed yet. Now she'll begin to head out right, and then the route curves back round to the left. So still quite a lot of moves to do. There's not that much wall left. Lots of moves. Complicated section through these volumes as well.
Yeah, you can see her shaking out there and trying to calm her heart rate down, I'm sure, because of the wind. It doesn't really affect you physically, I would say, with like buffeting you around the wall, but mentally and emotionally, I think it would drain your energy quite a bit to have it be this windy in the semifinal.
Great effort for Tina.
A really strong performance from her today.
Yeah, first climber into that section of green volumes, but it kicks in so quickly. I was watching the route setters test that section the other day, and it looks absolutely desperate. And it's move after move. It's unrelenting.
And like Charlie said earlier today, the setters are pretty sure that the difficulty of the men's and women's route are comparable today. So it just goes to show you how in climbing both genders can perform at such a high level, and it's really inspiring to see both men and women climb at the relatively the same difficulty.
Yufei Pan, Chinese athlete, chatted to his coach yesterday, and he's saying They weren't very happy with his qualifying performance, but he did just about enough, snuck through in 24th place, climbs third in the semi-final, reverse order like always. Highest ranked climber from the qualifiers, out last in the semis. He's underway, Yufei Pan. He's been my top tip to keep an eye on much of this year. I was building him up in Innsbruck. It doesn't look that comfortable on the men's route here though. Now he's into it a bit. Yeah, looked a bit wild through that initial section. Just needs to, as you say, calm down, get used to the wind, get used to being back on the wall after a disruptive day yesterday.
Yeah, Yufei Pan, really good up-and-coming young athlete. He was did really well performance in Innsbruck. I believe he qualified for the Youth Olympic Games next year. And he's definitely a big up-and-coming star in China here.
Yeah, he's all over the graphics and the around the venue. Yufei Pan, it's his face on all the pictures. As I say, saw him in Innsbruck, and I think he's absolutely a climber worth watching. Doesn't seem to have quite found his rhythm here, but looking more comfortable with each move that passes. You can see there the two round volumes marking the dynamic move. Hasn't troubled either of our two climbers so far, the two South Korean. Anna Tiganova, very successful female speed climber, is climbing on the women's route. Don't forget, like always, get in touch, Twitter, hashtag IFSCWC. Send us your thoughts on what you're seeing. If you're up early in Europe watching this live, I am impressed. Let us know your predictions. Just to let you know, Eddie, the IFSC photographer, who doesn't, he's normally not too far off with his predictions, is back into Moa Narasaki for a gold medal here. We shall see. Hasn't won a Bouldering World Cup this year. Could he win a lead one? We'll see. Long way to go. Samoa will climb further down the order. Had a good day in the qualifiers. Climbs second to last here. 25th. Yufei Pan, no problem with the dyno. Looked like he didn't really want to commit to it, but didn't have a lot of choice either. Apparently it can be done statically by crossing through with the left hand. But having seen the move being tested, it certainly looks a lot harder than the dyno.
Yeah, and it definitely is a height disadvantage here if you're shorter as well. If you're a little bit shorter, you actually have to do the jump, as we saw Yufei do right there. So he's looking really strong. Hopefully he'll be able to get through a couple more moves in this next section and get up towards the head wall of the route.
We lose Anna Tiganova relatively low down, unfortunately. Ji-won Bai of South Korea will be out next on the women's route. Not the day today for Anna Tiganova. We'll see her in the speed climbing, so plenty of time to go. Had some disruption apparently to the speed climbing schedule as well, due to a problem with the timers. The speed final, we're told, will take place as planned this afternoon. Keep an eye on the IFSC website, social media for any updates to the schedule, should the weather or problems with the timers intervene again.
And we're seeing Yufei move into the really difficult section of this route. You can see just how small those holds are there. And again, the texture on these black volumes you see is a little bit less gritty than we'd see typically in European competitions, which makes it a little bit more difficult for European athletes to adjust. But the Chinese athletes here definitely have a little bit more of an advantage knowing both the volumes and the unique holds they have here.
And the camera person, yes, finds Ji-won Bai, foot of the women's route. Back with Yufei Pan. Yeah, these, I guess you'd call it a honeycomb volume. It seems to be quite popular here. It's the same volume as the first hold on the women's route.
It's really cool texture and geometry. I really like trying to figure out where the best spot is to hold in some of these volumes because there's so many different spots to grab.
Yeah, it's one of those volumes where every time you hold it, you think you've found a better way of holding it. Yufei Pan really beginning to fight now, but he is near the top of the route now. That camera's mounted at the top of the route, and he's not a million miles away from it. Crowd enjoying this.
Really strong performance.
Looks like he's beginning to get pumped. Shoulders are back, the elbows are out. The top of the route beckons.
He's really close.
Gets a big cheer from the local crowd. Enjoyed that. We'll see where that puts him. It's always difficult to make predictions early on in the semi-final about what will and won't be enough, but that's certainly a good effort. And I have to say, from what we've seen, I think we will see some tops on this men's route.
I agree. Yeah, that was a really good fight. I think he definitely laid it all out there in the field and had some really good pacing, good resting positions. And when it came down to it, he just put it all on the line. So that's good enough for second place provisionally, I believe. And
yes.
We will see how that holds up.
Yeah, if we do get multiple tops, obviously it's not ideal, but luckily in the men's competition we did have really good separation yesterday in the qualifiers. Routes did their job. We didn't have any double tops, as I mentioned, and actually very few ties in general. Had a tie for fourth, as I mentioned earlier, fascinatingly enough, between Stefano Ghisolfi and Romain Desgrange, the two men fighting it out for the overall title, with Romain very much in the driving seat, and then a bit further down had a tie in 17th and a tie in 25th. They were all two-way ties, and they were the only ties coming out of the qualifiers. So good job from the route setters, certainly in the men's qualifiers. So if we do get a top-heavy semi-final, we'll at least have count back to the qualifiers for the majority of athletes to separate them. See there, Tina Johnson-Hafsas, really good effort from her. This women's route, very, very tough. 27 plus, currently leading the way. Already we lose Ji-won Bai. Suju Lin of Taipei will be climbing next on the women's route. That's Hannes Puman of Sweden on the men's. Travelling with and training with Tina Johnson-Hafsas. Currently leads the way in the women's route. And as you can see how hard these moves are, he's getting a pretty good spot from the spare B layer down there. With a couple of moves and he'll be clear of the danger zone, able to clip that third quick draw. Just trying to figure out how to get the rope around his leg. Now he's underway on the slab.
Yeah, Hannes is a really, really strong up-and-coming athlete as well. Placed 7th in Arco earlier this year in Lead World Cup. Has performed at a really high level in the Youth World Championship scene for many years, and definitely one to look out for in the next upcoming couple of years as well.
Yeah, he's been very consistently finishing mid semi-final, 19th, 14th. That's 7th you mentioned in Arco, 17th, 12th and 9th as results this year. So massively consistent, and nearly dropped it on the slab. The left foot went, but he had a good grip of the volume with the right hand. He was able to push on.
Yeah, interesting that most of the feet, again, on the slab are very big, but the one foot that you don't want to slip off of, that small one, is the one that he almost just did. So good save from Hannes right there.
Yeah, it was a good save, actually. One of those innocuous looking moments that can actually just spit you off a semi-final route.
Yeah, but he definitely know he has the composure to keep it together and finish strong in this route. He's a former Youth World Champion. And so I think, anything's game for this competition, especially considering the conditions and how it's been playing out so far. So a good chance that we'll see Hannes get high in this route and hopefully earn a spot in finals.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see the order thrown around again as it was last week in Wuchang, with Tomoe Narasaki and Jongwon Chon getting involved in the finals. As I say, Hannes, immensely consistent season this year. Not missed any semi-finals, made a final, very narrowly missed another one, 9th place in VLAR. Can feature here. One or two of the regular finalists missing here from China. Not many, it must be said, particularly in the men's competition, but Jakob Schubert not here, Sean McColl still troubled by the injury picked up in Munich. So could be a couple of slots going in the final for a guy like Hannes. Let's keep an eye. He's just heading up to the dynamic move. Out to the first of the 2 round volumes. Keep an eye bottom right of your screen as well.
Oh, no.
We lose him just as I was saying there could be an opportunity for him. He's come down, he's absolutely furious with himself. Can't see him, but he's about 10 meters away from us. Smacking himself on the head, not happy with that. Hopefully we can see a replay. Suju Lin of Taipei. And the women's reaches into those 3 round black volumes, and then it's up to the 2 diamond-shaped black volumes above, and then you're into the green volumes where we lost Tina Johnson half set, so we haven't seen it above that point yet.
Wow.
Just about sticks the jump.
Really good stick for her.
Yeah, full commitment.
Yeah, it's always interesting, especially coming from other parts of the world, learning the new holds here. And this hold that she jumped to specifically is something that even I would be very hesitant jumping for, because it's always really difficult to tell just how deep a hold is going to be, especially a pocket like that. And so as someone who's competed on Chinese holds before, I imagine gives you quite a big advantage of knowing just which holds are the good ones and which holds are the ones you got to be a little more careful for.
Well, I think it's one of the factors in why the Japanese team have done so well in bouldering, is because they've got pretty much every volume ever made in all their gyms.
Yeah.
You just learn the subtleties of them.
Yeah. What's actually been pretty interesting is that a lot of the athletes that have stayed in China in between both the Wujiang comp and this competition, we just lost Hu Julin. Good effort from her.
Yeah, through that initial tricky section, she was just heading
Yeah.
through the diamond volumes. Alberto got her underway on the men's route.
Yeah, so yeah, Charlie, as I was saying, what a lot of athletes have done is we went and did a week of training in Shanghai, and one of the cool things we got to do as athletes is train all together, all the different countries, going to a couple different gyms, having really good community and really getting to know each other. So it's been a really fun experience, and one of the gyms we got to go to in Shanghai is actually a Japanese-style bouldering gym. So it's really cool to kind of experience what that was like for a lot of athletes who haven't been to Tokyo, what kind of a Japanese-style bouldering gym looks like and feels like. I actually got to meet the owner. He is a Japanese doctor who is currently in Shanghai, and he saw a lack of high-quality bouldering gyms and decided to build his own. So if you want to do some Japanese bouldering, head over to Shanghai.
Just keep an eye on Alberto Gotta. Netta Fredman also just going through a individual observation period, 40 seconds at the bottom of the wall before she has to start climbing, just to remind herself of the route. Of course, we had group observation earlier on, the athletes all observing together, but she does get 40 seconds of her own time. But for people, for people who watch these World Cups and wonder what the athletes have been doing in between them, just give us a bit of an insight into what it's like as an athlete traveling between World Cups, the challenges, the fun.
Sure, yeah, and Alberto's getting towards the commitment point here, so definitely keep an eye on him. But yeah, it's been really interesting. This is my first World Cup season back after I took a couple years off from injury, and it's really exciting getting to know everyone again, different people, different setting, different locations we're traveling to now. So it's really exciting, and the lifestyle is definitely pretty cool too, just being able to travel to a bunch of really cool places.
Let's have a look at Alberto. We lose him on the dyno. First climber that's dropped the dyno. It's such a shame. It is a hard move, and you've got to go full commitment. It looked like he did, possibly just missed the sweet spot.
Yeah, and like we were saying, with the Chinese hold, they're very different. Yeah, they're very different than European style holds. So a lot of the European or Western competitors definitely have a little bit less of an advantage. But we're about to see a replay. Yeah, just missed it.
Yeah, I think he actually went with that right hand, went too far onto the top of the volume, which is a pretty poor part of it. I think you've got to get both hands on the left hand side.
That's true. And also with a dyno like that, one of the key things that we definitely like to see is when you stick the dyno itself, it's pretty important to stick it with bent arms actually, because you want to be able to absorb the impact and have some leeway. If you stick it with completely straight arms, there's not a lot of room for you to readjust.
Well, the only thing that can give really is your hands.
Exactly.
It's the only thing that can move, yeah. So saw that with Alberto, as I said, I think that right hand right on top of the volume, and he just didn't, as you say, have any ability to cushion it. Netta Fredman, good fight from her, but we lose her going up to that green volcano hold.
Yeah, and like we were saying earlier, it's such a unique hold you don't see anywhere else in the world but China. So if you're not used to exactly where the sweet spot of it is, it's going to be difficult to figure out how to jump for it exactly.
Fedir Samoilov about to start climbing on the men's route, but we got waylaid by Alberto Gotta on that dynamic move. But yeah, you were saying about the how it feels to travel with the IFSC Tour and having the week off in the middle. It certainly presents a unique challenge when you're away from your home comforts and different food and different gyms.
Sure, yeah, and we're about to see a replay, I believe, of Netta's attempt here. As you can see, she's moved up to right before the dyno here. She might be a little bit pumped, but you can tell when she's jumping for this hold, she just gets the outside of it, and you really have to get deep into that hold in order to get it solid. So unfortunately right now, as Fadir starts up, you can really tell the wind is picking up very strongly, and there's quite a bit of rain coming down in the venue right now.
This is pretty much the organisers and technical delegates' worst nightmare. Once the semi-final's underway, they can't stop the semi-final. You can't just red light and then hopefully carry on later. It doesn't work like that. You've got to either not start it or finish it.
Yeah, so it actually could be interesting now with moisture coming in from the rain, especially on these volumes being slippery already. On the men's route specifically, you have to put all your body weight through your feet on these volumes, and even though they're big, they're not quite as textured as some of the European volumes. So with a little bit of rain, it could be an interesting combination. But Fadir is a really strong competitor. He was a bronze medalist earlier this season, and both athletes on the wall right now from Ukraine. So good team, very strong right now.
Yeah, Evgenia Kazbekova, a couple of meters away from us, just got underway on the Roman's route.
Former world champion herself in the youth categories.
And as you say, Fede stormed out of the blocks earlier on this year. Super strong, third place in Vila. And then you might remember had a bit of a disaster in Xiamen. He slipped off on move 2. No problems for him with the dyno. Didn't, again, look like he quite hit the sweet spot of the volume, but he hit enough of it.
Yeah, really strong boulder as well. I got to climb with him a little bit at the Adidas Rockstars competition in Stuttgart, Germany. Really fun. Great event for all of you guys who haven't been there so far. Definitely recommend it.
It's a lot of fun. Already seems a long time ago. So, Fede taking the opportunity to shake out. You wonder if backstage we keep an eye on the time. He might be out slightly earlier than he might have expected. A couple of relatively low falls. So we'll know that time is unlikely to be an issue. Evgenia Kazbekova is just lining up the move where we just lost Netta Fredman.
Makes it look super easy. As you can see in the bottom right corner of your screen, she just casually did the move to the volcano hold, checking out right now. Looking really strong. And Fadir is fighting pretty hard through the headwall here, about to get up to the big geometric volume. The rain's coming down. Unfortunately, pretty hard, although it is quite thin rain. It's not very thick. Guess you could say that's a positive.
You come from California and I come from the northwest of England. There's only one expert of rain in this country.
That's fair enough. And it rains, it's considered a severe weather event.
Fede just lining it up. It's that fine rain that gets you wet. Fede just lining it up. You can see our camera person trying to install an umbrella. Gives you an idea of the conditions as we lose. Evgenia Kazbekova just slips off. Belays are going to have to be quite careful actually. The floor of the venue is so slippery. Have to be quite careful, not only holding falls and not being pulled off the feet, but when they lower the climbers. Evgenia swinging around there. The belay had to time it well to get her down in a balanced position. So Fede close on the men's route, and again slaps up with the left hand. That move proving to be the crux for the stronger climbers at this stage.
Yeah, he got to the same spot as Pan Yufei did earlier, so good effort from him.
Just keep an ear out for what the venue MC is saying. I do hope we're not going to have a pause to the semi-final. Let's have another look anyway. I believe this is Fede. Yeah, here we see, you can see how hard it's raining. So it's that big slap up with the left hand. He was looking pumped. was that cost him.
Yeah, good fight from Fadir there.
See immediately behind us, there's us. The technical delegates, jury president, all the IFSC officials just trying to figure out what to do. Fadir Samoilov makes his way past us. Yeah, I wonder, we seem to have a temporary pause here in Xiamen.
Yeah, just waiting to see what the delegations will say.
Yeah, you can see right here, we couldn't really be any closer to the action here in Xiamen. Myself and Josh Levin about a metre away from the foot of the wall. They're just trying to decide what to do. The problem here we've had in Xiamen is that when it rains, it seems to always be accompanied by wind. There's actually quite a good roof above the wall. It sticks out about 2 metres above the top of the wall, so if the rain was to come straight down, we might stand a chance. But unfortunately, it is accompanied by wind. You can see there, the umbrellas coming out. And we will bring you an update as soon as we have one. This is the last thing we wanted to happen, because we had all sorts of problems yesterday. We were supposed to have the semi-final at 5 p.m. It then got shifted to 5:30 p.m. It was then decided to cancel it. There's not much anyone can do. We can't get reliable forecasts here, partly because the weather is very unstable. I believe we've got a big low pressure parked over Xiamen, and yeah, not able to get a reliable forecast. What we can get though is reliable score, and Tina Johnson Hafsas does lead the way. We just saw Evgenia Kazbekova. Decent effort from her, already made a final this year. Unlikely to be enough, but you never know. 23 plus. Tina Johnson Hafsas leading the way, 27 plus, and scores all the way down to Anna Siganova with 14 plus. In the men's competition, Jongwon Chon, such a wonderful day for him last week in Wujiang. He's currently leading the way, and one move behind him, Fadir Samoilov and Yufei Pan. And still have a rain delay here in Xiamen. So just to keep you entertained for 5 minutes, here's a quick look at a very well-known climber, Stefano Ghisolfi.
My name is Stefano Ghisolfi. I'm from Turin, but I live in Arco now. I'm 23 years old, and I'm a professional climber. I was good until the beginning when I started climbing, but I don't know why. I started climbing at 11 years old, and I just feel good in this sport. Before I used to go biking, but I wasn't that good. So I feel good climbing. I felt the first time light. I felt comfortable, and I just like it. Winning a competition is everything about details. Everything you eat, how much you sleep, how good you sleep in the night before, and how good was your training in your months before or the previous year. Everything, every detail is important for a victory. I like climbing during the competition because it's always a challenge with the others. That my opponents are also my friends, and I like climb outside too because there are no pressure against the others, but just is a more relaxing thing, and sometimes is stressful too because there is the pressure about the route and about the challenge with yourself. But I like both competing and climbing outside. I moved to Arco because there are a lot of rock climbing, a lot of crags here for climbing, and a lot of gym and new possibility for training too. and also because it's a beautiful place. It's near the lake. There are a lot of mountains. I think there is everything here, and it's not a big city, so also I think living is better here. Now I'm in Arco, so I'm closer to Austria and Germany. So I'd like to visit also Austria and Franken-Jura maybe. It is closer here than Turin, so I would like to visit a lot of new places for me and also move around the world, and maybe Spain and Catalonia is the best place maybe for climbing in the winter. So I think this winter I will go in Catalonia for a bit, and then some other places for me. I didn't climb in a lot of places, so everything is new for me. I don't know when my career will stop. I hope I will be good enough to compete in the Olympics in 4 years, and maybe in the next Olympics in 8 years, and maybe then I will be old enough to stop competing. I don't know yet.
Well, unfortunately, as you can see behind me, no improvements in the weather here in Xiamen, so the semi-final is on hold for now. We'll try and keep you up to date as best we can. We'll bring you some profiles and some portraits, but in the meantime, go and put the kettle on, maybe crack open a beer, and keep the volume on. I'll give you a shout when we get underway again.
저는 한국의 클라이머 김자인이고요. 올해로 클라이밍 한 지 16년째 접어들고 있습니다. 처음 클라이밍을 시작했을 때는 굉장히 무서움이 너무 컸어서 이렇게까지 오랫동안 클라이밍을 할 수 있을지 몰랐는데 아무래도 클라이밍이 처음에는 재밌어서라기보다는 뭔가 내가 잘하고 싶은 욕심에 열심히 했던 것 같아요. 근데 하다 보니까 클라이밍의 매력에 푹 빠져 있었고, 네, 지금은 클라이밍이 너무 재밌어요. 솔직히 저는 제가 이 자리에 있는 게 굉장히 신기할 때가 많아요. 왜냐면은 처음에 월드컵 처음 출전할 때 41등 예선 탈락으로 월드컵을 시작했고, 처음부터 굉장히 눈에 띄는 선수가 아니었기 때문에 굉장히 세계 랭킹 1등에 있는 선수들을 보면은 너무 신기하고 정말 신 같고 그랬는데, 제가 그 자리에 있다는 게 아직도 되게 신기할 때가 많고, 네, 그런 것 같아요. 이제 사람들이 제 등반을 보면서 되게 부드럽게 등반한다고 많이 말씀을 해주시는데, 그게 뭔가 제가 그렇게 하려고 막 노력을 했다기보다는 그냥 클라이밍 할 때 어떤 편안한 느낌을 자연스럽게 쫓아가다 보니까 그런 저만의 등반 스타일이 만들어진 것 같습니다. 2004년부터 이제 월드컵에 출전했지만은 그때도 그렇고 지금도 그렇고 목표가 월드 랭킹 1등은 아니에요. 하지만은 정말 그냥 제가 주어진 것에 최선을 다하고 또 모든 순간을 즐겁게 클라이밍하고, 대회도 역시 모든 순간에 최선을 다해서 또 완등을 위해서 클라이밍을 하는 게 제 목표입니다. 즐거움을 주는 그런 클라이머로 기억되고 싶고요. 사람들이 저의 클라이밍 하는 모습을 보면서 아, 정말 클라이밍은 정말 재밌고 매력 있는 스포츠구나 하는 거를 알 수 있는 그런 클라이밍을 하고 싶습니다.
I'm Jakob Schubert, I'm from Innsbruck, Austria, and I'm a professional climber. I started when I was 12 years old, and yeah, I got asked to try out for the team because I look like a talented climber. So I guess, yeah, I wasn't too bad. And yeah, obviously it started slow. I didn't like climb 8C from the first day on, but like I said, there were a lot of other strong people and other really motivated climbers to train with, and that always kept me really psyched, and I improved every month.
Well, I have to say, Josh Levin and I were just getting comfortable behind the wall here in Xiamen, expecting quite a long break before the action got underway, but I'm very pleased to say we are back in action. So the climbers Francesco Vetterata underway on the men's route. For now, we only have climbers on the men's route. The women's remains out of action. The route setters doing what they can to dry it. The rain has stopped here in Xiamen, but it did a lot of damage while it lasted. You might see in not too long the route setters drying the women's route just off to the right. Francesco Vetterata finds himself alone on the wall here in Xiamen, and delighted to be underway again. It had that feel of rain that wasn't going away, but pleased to say it has gone away. We're underway again.
Big commitment move coming up here for Francesco.
Yeah, we saw his teammate drop it. He's going to try and do it statically. And he also falls on the same move and looks furious with himself. Looked like he had a frustrating day in the qualifiers yesterday. Really didn't look happy with his performance, and I think it tells you everything you need to know about what he thinks about his semi-final performance.
Yeah, really hard to see him come off there, especially because while we were on break, Francesco was actually back behind the wall. You can see right there, with no jacket, no pants, just having to basically do some jumping jacks to keep himself warm while it's pouring down rain. And I'm sure it was really difficult for him to stay motivated, stay on point, and stay focused. So really difficult to have to deal with these conditions, but I mean, this is what we get, and unfortunately this is how it's playing out with the competition.
Yeah, we'll try and keep you up to date as best we can. All the IFSC officials are pretty good about coming over and telling us what's going on, but everyone's figuring it out as it goes. One thing for sure, the people who've already climbed will be pretty happy. Regardless of how they got on, they've already done before the rain.
Yeah, and unfortunately the rain was coming in from right to left, as you can see on your screen there, instead of left to right, which does mean that the women's route gets quite a bit more water than the men's route, which is why we put a hold on for the women's climb so far.
So Francesco heads back inside from Italy. Next is Spain. He's standing right next to us. I feel I should keep my voice down. I'm not quite sure why. I'm not going to give him any beta or anything, but yeah, Javier right next to us, ready to go on the men's route. Francesco Vetterata make his way past us as well, back into isolation.
And Javier is a really strong climber, has made quite a few semifinals recently. So you can, as we speak, he actually walked over in his tennis shoes and a towel and is putting on his climbing shoes now, as opposed to wall. Very smart choice on his part.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, that section around the bottom of the men's route is actually about the only dry place in the venue.
Yeah.
Bone dry. So they've been lucky. Route setters working hard, trying to get the women's route dry. It's a thankless task. The problem is that the wind is sending the rain in, as Josh mentioned, from the side, and it's just soaking the panels on that women's route. Hiroshi Akano, Vincent Dujurilamu, two of our route setters. Hiroshi, the chief here, up there on the cherry pickers, trying their best to dry it out.
And Javier is applying some liquid chalk here, pretty important in these conditions. Want to make sure your hands stay as dry as possible even if you get to some patch that's wet.
Really awkward place to be mentally, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially for the climbers lower down the order, the people climbing 20th and onwards, they'll be thinking, well, how long do I have to stay warm? How warm do I need to stay? I mean, do I just keep it at base level, or when do you go into your final warm-up? It really makes life very, very difficult.
And one of the things that you can't really see here is that especially the wind and the cold and the rain, it definitely saps a lot of your energy. So unfortunately these routes are very, very bouldery, and you want to have as much energy as possible, especially for the upper moves where we're seeing some of the high points be reached. So we'll definitely see how it progresses, and the later climbers, if they have enough energy to continue up to the top of the wall, or if it'll really favor the climbers who went early.
Yeah, when it's not raining, conditions are actually pretty good here, as we mentioned. Conditions good when it isn't raining. The humidity seems to have reduced somewhat, but still not ideal.
And we can see Javier moving up through this volume section again. He's looking pretty strong so far. Good pacing. And fortunately, his shoes have been pretty dry, it seems, so no major slips or issues with friction down low.
Yeah, he's just approaching that high commitment move out to the right where we lost our two Italian climbers so far on the men's route. For those of you just joining us, Charlie Bosco here as ever with Josh Levin alongside me, with a rain disrupted and delayed semi-final here in Xiamen, but we're underway on the men's route as we lose Javier, and I have to say I don't think that looked related to the rain.
It's hard to tell. The holds you were on, as you can see, are really small, very small crimps. And if you're sitting backstage for a while, your fingers are actually starting to get a little bit colder, so it's possible that you ran out of finger strength or wasn't warmed up properly, or the friction wasn't good enough.
Now let's have another look at it. So, just misread the sequence.
He's got the correct sequence. You just see his right hand dry fire right there.
Yeah, perhaps that is related to the conditions actually. It looked pretty solid. He seems to be pretty happy with it.
Yeah. Definitely ask him later whether it was related to the moisture or whether his fingers were just a little bit too cold for that move.
Heads past us, not looking in the mood to be asked about why he just fell off. And Loic Timmermans will be climbing next. He's in the commentary box for the semi-finals. Last week he's on the wall this time. And good to see. He's disappointed with his performance in Wujiang. Understandably, he was hoping for semi-finals at least. And he's just emerged from the other side of the wall, so they're actually cleverly, someone's got their thinking cap on, bringing the climbers behind the wall and round out to the other side, so they don't actually have to walk across any of the wet part of the venue.
And Loic's one of those climbers that I've personally known for years. Did our first competition together when we were, I think, 13 years old in Marseille, France, very long time ago. So it's cool to see him back in action here in the semifinals of the World Cup. He actually had his first ever finals performance earlier this season in Chamonix. So really good to see him having lots of success and throughout both the youth and senior level.
Yeah, you guys have been hanging out a lot this week. It's really good to see him climbing again.
Yeah, Loic's a great guy. We been hanging out quite a bit, both in Shanghai and also here in Xiamen as well. He's currently sharing a room with Campbell Harrison of Australia, and I think, yeah, I'm sharing a room currently with Alan Jonas McRae from Canada, who's going to be climbing a little bit later. So we're all gotten to know each other quite a bit better throughout these Chinese competitions.
That is one of the big benefits of these long trips away. Plenty of time for chatting in the hotel. Could sometimes feel like a long week, but always managed to find plenty to do in the end. As we see Loic. Wonder if this slab might actually be slightly trickier for him. He's relatively tall.
Yeah, hopefully it helps out for him with the big dynamic move up higher we've seen.
Again, tough one for him mentally because he had a bad week last week in Wujiang, and now half a dozen moves time he's going to be asked to commit to a high risk move. Pausing now though, he's alone on the wall. If you're just tuning in, the women are not climbing. The route setters are trying to dry their route after a rain shower. You can see them there on the right hand side of your screen in the lift, doing their best to dry the route, figure out which holds are usable and which need some work. But the men are climbing the left hand side of the wall as we look at it in Xiamen. Has stayed dry somehow, mainly due to wind direction. And Loic Timmermans is on the wall and heading up to the dynamic move, up to the big round volume. Yeah, you can see the route setters doing their thing. I have seen in the past a leaf blower employed to get the job done. We didn't have access to one this time.
Loic's looking really strong at these moves so far.
Yeah, this is where we lost Javier just a couple of minutes ago actually. And we lose Loic as well, slips off, and it's exactly the same thing. And I have to say, now that's two climbers in a row, you'd have to conclude that is conditions.
Definitely seems like it could be the case.
We didn't see many climbers, I'm racking my brains for the early part of the semi-final, but we didn't see many climbers falling at that stage. So to lose two in a row, especially the calibre of Javier and Loic, doesn't suggest conditions are ideal right now.
Yeah, especially with those two holds right there being relatively uncut.
Loic just looking at his left hand, wondering if he did something wrong. I don't think he did, just slipped off it. Nasty looking pop as well. That's an easy way to injure your finger coming off a hold like that. I think he's okay. See Vincent and Hiroshi just debating, having a good time as well, debating which of the women's holds are good to go. That's the green section of volumes that Tina Johnson Hafsas got to the start of. Got a couple of moves into it, but we haven't yet seen anything above that. Josh Levin, who was alongside me in the commentary box, has just disappeared actually. He's going to go and grab a word with Loic Timmermans, try and find out what conditions were like, if it was the humidity that dropped him. Tomo Johannes is on the wall now. I've just been told as well that the women will hopefully be climbing in around 5 minutes time. So the rain shower here in Xiamen did some damage, but it's not stopped play, and apparently the women will be underway. Been a rough, it'll be about a half-hour delay for them by the time we do get our next climber on the wall. Thomas on the men's route. How are conditions? As I say, Josh Levin has been dispatched to go and have a word with Loic Timmermans. We'll try to find out for you. Thomas having to fight here on the slab. And you can see how much wind there still is. That's our wall-mounted camera at the top of the wall, shaking around. The quick draw's blowing. T-shirts getting buffeted by the wind. Conditions far from ideal here, but hopefully they do remain good enough for the semi-final to carry on. Ilan Jonas-McRae, who Josh Levin said he's sharing a room with this week in Xiamen, he'll be out after Thomas. But can we see a new high point? Can we see the route topped from what we saw from Jongwon Chon and Fede Samolov and Yufei Pan? I certainly think it can. Around just approaching those sections that's proved problematic, particularly since the rain. Josh, we've just been speaking to Loic. We'll just keep an eye actually on Tomac. Will he be the first climber since the rain to get through that section? He will. You were just speaking to Loic. Tell us how conditions are on the wall.
So what Loic was saying as we watch Tomac get up to this move.
Yeah, I was about to say, let's just actually watch how he gets on with this move, because he doesn't look like he's that keen on it right now.
No, it's just really high commitment.
Really high commitment. You can see the wind. It might not affect you massively physically, but it really affects your concentration. The ability to focus, it just clouds your brain a bit. He's lining it up, he's going, and he's sticking it. Nice work. Didn't look as if he was super keen on that move.
Yeah, very impressive stick for him. Anyways, I just had a chance to speak with Loic and ask him about how the conditions are on the wall. It looked like it may have been possibly wet on the holds that we were contemplating in the booth here. But as Loic was saying, it's actually more of the humidity that is the big factor here. Both the two crimps that we saw him and I believe Francesco, is that who?
Xavier,
yeah. Both the two crimps that we saw those two athletes fall at, they're very friction dependent, and because of the humidity here, it's actually really difficult to hold on to them right now.
So the holds themselves aren't actually wet?
Correct.
Well, that's one good bit of news. The route set is still up on the lift. Looking at the upper section of the women's route, just to keep you informed. You can just see the lift there on the top right screen behind the graphic. And that, to me, looks like rain again. And Vincent Cossé, our IFSC technical delegate, just behind me, looks pretty hacked off, and I can understand why. You can see the rain beginning to fall hard here again. I hope we don't have another delay. Meanwhile, Tomac just has to focus on his job. Not much else he can do. Jongwon Chon currently leading the way, as you can see there, top of your screen, 45 plus. Only a few moves from the top. And the rain coming down hard again now.
Yeah, very impressive performance from Tomac considering the conditions. He looked like he was mentally battling earlier, but was able to hold it together at least up and through this section.
We lose him on that arrow-shaped volume. You can see how wet it is here in Xiamen. He instantly tries to get off the wet ground instinctively. But he's done. Unlikely to be enough, but you won't climb in much tougher circumstances than that. Let's have another look. So yeah, he was at that arrow-shaped volume, then he slapped up. It was there where he fell. Yeah, he was already on the way by the time his hand landed. Very difficult circumstances to find yourself climbing in. Makes his way past us, looking a bit fed up with the whole situation. You can understand why. This rain's caused all sorts of problems. Doubly ironic because it's been beautiful weather here in Xiamen all week, albeit far too hot to be comfortable, but I think the climbers would take heat over this any day. Ilan going ahead with his route.
Yeah, Ilan is hopefully excited that he's able to climb today. I know I was talking to him earlier last night and this morning that all he really wanted is a chance to try out the route. He's really excited just to get on the wall and have a good go at a semifinal. He's yet to make a final at a World Cup event, but he's made quite a few semifinals, especially this season. Very consistent competitor, and also currently my roommate. So rooting for him on this route, and hopefully he does well.
Does he snore?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, it's been really great traveling around with Ilan so far. We went to Shanghai for a couple days before the competition in Wujiang, and then stayed together there. Went back to Shanghai for a couple nights and stayed with Campbell Harrison, did some training, got some good food, and then now we're here in Xiamen.
Yeah, a couple of 12ths already for Ilan this year. And as you say, no final. You can see there, John Won-chon leading the way, 45 plus, Fedir Samolov and Yu Fei Pan currently in second and third.
Yeah, Lan actually looking pretty comfortable through this slab section. Very composed, as we can see.
He's a man that it doesn't feel to me like he's too far off a final.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time now.
You can see again our camera mounted at the top of the wall, shaking around in the wind. It's still very windy here. The rain has stopped again. I don't want to make the whole broadcast about rain, but it does seem to be the main subject right now. It's deciding how this semi-final is going. Still no action on the women's route, and the route setters still high up on it, trying to keep it dry. Yeah, and Ilan looking strong so far. Just heading up to those couple of tiny holes just to the left of where the grey and red sections of wall are joined. These two here, where we lost Xavier and Loic. He won't know that, of course, but he just needs to stay in control at this stage. Now he makes it work. It looked like that was in doubt for a second there.
Yeah, he ended up getting a very small toe hook on that right volume he's standing on right now, but he just really commit here.
And again, he went for the top of the volume, not the left-hand side. It's a balance, isn't it? Because if you go totally for the left-hand side, you just drop out of it. But if you go totally on the top, you slip off. So it's somewhere in the middle. It's that sweet spot. It looked to me as if he went a bit too high. Let's have another look.
Now I get to really see exactly how his body position was here. Yeah, also he didn't quite go high enough, I think. His arms were completely straight when he grabbed for the volume. And so I think you need to go with a little more bent arms. But yeah, overall, good climbing through the beginning part. I know he's wanted to go a little bit higher for sure, but considering the conditions, definitely a good fight.
Yeah, you can see there that contraption behind that looks like something out of a sci-fi movie is the cherry picker lift that the route setters are using. That'll get moved when and if the women get underway. See it in the background there, Hannes Puman. Perhaps just watching a replay of his climb. Eddie, the IFSC photographer, not much to photograph right now. Only one climber on the wall at any time. As I say, Eddie back into Moa Narasaki to win here in Xiamen. What a result that would be. That was the sound of Ilan just giving Josh a quick debrief. What did you say there, Josh? I didn't quite hear that.
I think he hit his hand pretty hard in the fall. Couldn't quite understand, but...
Yeah, he hit the wall pretty hard.
Yeah. I think I'll actually go back to ask Alan how the conditions are at this point in time.
Okay, I'll send you off again. Go find out. So, Kichiro Koranaga on the wall. 12th climber out, one more climber, Rats Rudiger, and we will have a cleaning break. So we're almost halfway through this men's semi-final, an hour in. The women's far behind. We are still waiting for climber number 9, Claudia Gasolfi. Kichiro Koranaga once again having problems with the rope. I don't remember that before. Sorts himself out now. If you do Z clip, by the way, you aren't allowed to correct it. You don't get disqualified or anything. You just have to correct your mistake. But he's underway now. Getting up onto the slab, finds himself alone here in Xiamen. Still no sign of Claudia Gasolfi. He was told about 15 minutes ago that we could expect her in 5 minutes, but there's obviously not been the case. That second rain shower really just soaked the women's route when it looked like the route setters were pretty close to getting it dry again. Big challenge for everyone right now. No one more than Kichiro Koranaga. mentioning actually, excellent day for Japan in the qualifiers yesterday. Often the case in the bouldering, and it was the case in the lead. Chiro, the first of 6 Japanese climbers to qualify for the semi-final. Yukihara, Masahiro Higuchi be out later on, and then the top 3 from the qualifiers yesterday, all Japan in the men's. Yoshiyuki Ogata, Tomohiro Nagasaki and Kokoro Fuji. Those last 2, of course, multiple World Cup winners in the bouldering, and Yoshiyuki, youth world champion as well. He had an excellent day in the qualifiers. Kochiro, the first of 6 Japanese climbers in today's men's semi-final. You might be able to hear on my microphone actually, wind picked up once again. It's started to rain again. You can see it just as the route setters start to come down on the lift. We get another rain shower. They're doing their best to get that women's route dry and get things underway. Kochiro now just heading up to those 2 tiny crimps that Loic Timmermans told Josh were not wet but humid. Just got to be careful through this section. Of course, Kochiro has no idea where everyone else fell. Now he's lining up for the dynamic move. We've just seen Elam fall, going up for it. What can Kochiro do? Launches, and to me it looked like he missed the perfect part of that volume but made it work. I think the left hand was just about low enough to control it. He's off again. That was close though. Just been told that no sign of the women coming out just yet. We will keep an eye. It's the women's route that's taking the brunt of the rain, unfortunately, due to the direction of the wind. It's soaking, particularly the upper part, but sad to say, looking up at the wall, it's also beginning to seep a bit lower down as well. We'll keep you informed. So Kochiro onto those 3 black volumes, and you can see that honeycomb volume there. That's one of the major landmarks on this men's route. Once he gets past that, he really is into the business end of the route. He's onto the final panel. And apart from looking like he had a bit of a close call in the dynamic move, he's looked in control and pretty steady up until this point. 12th climber out in the men's competition. We've had 8 in the women's. We still await the arrival of Claudia Gasolfi, the 9th. The climbing still to be done here in Xiamen. Thanks for your patience. Now Kochiro getting stuck in. The Japanese team audible behind me. We lost Tom Johannes on that blue volume. He's currently got his left hand on. He's just got to wait. You can see how strong the wind is. He's got to wait for the quick draw to blow down into his grasp. Just trying to find that, figure out how to use that arrow-shaped volume, and he heads up now onto the black one. Doesn't look too tired at this stage, but if he's not now, he will be soon. And it's one move too far up to the black volume. Be enough for a place in the finals as things stand. But with 14 climbers still to come, you fear it won't be enough in the final reckoning. So this was the dynamic move lower down. It didn't look amazingly comfortable. Let's have a look. Yes, the left hand didn't land exactly where he wanted it, but it just dropped down to where it needed to be. And this was the move where we lost him. Apologies for the camera shake. There he is. So out next, just behind the wall, is Max Rudiger. You can see him, he'll emerge from the left. There he is. Had a superb second half of this 2000 17 season, particularly in Arco, third place there. There was 2 medals for Italy that day in the men's lead, with Jakob Schubert winning the competition. Currently joint 10th in the overall rankings, Max, after, as I say, an excellent season, something of a breakthrough season. 7th in Edinburgh, 3rd in Arco. And he's only missed a couple of semi-finals, Chamonix and Villars. Onto the slab section now. Still no sign of the women's route seeing any action, unfortunately. Route setters coming down in the lift now. Might try and grab a word with them. Josh Levin still behind the wall, trying to quiz as many of the climbers as he can, find out what conditions are really like. Keep an eye on Max. Max now just climbing pretty slowly. Making sure he's set on these tenuous slab moves. And Josh Levin, you're back.
I'm back.
What did you find out?
Yeah, so unfortunately, after Alain made his attempt on the route, when he came down, there was quite a bit of slack in the rope as he was falling, and when he slammed into the wall, he hurt his hand quite badly, actually. So he's receiving medical attention right now, but I was just actually helping him get some ibuprofen and make sure it's being taken care of. But yeah, hopefully he'll be okay, because we're actually supposed to go climbing in Yangshuo next week, and it'd be really a shame if he can't climb now.
Keep an eye on Max. Is he going to try and do it statically? He's certainly got the power. He's a super powerful climber, but chooses to go dynamically, and it doesn't work, and we lose Max on that dynamic move out to the right, and he does not look happy about it. We'll now have a cleaning break on the men's route. Let's have another look. You can see the rain continuing to come down. Let's just have another look. He lined it up. Yeah, he never really liked the look of that move.
Yeah, and as we can see from the last couple competitors, that move specifically, you can only really do if you have the height for it. And if you aren't quite as tall as some of the other competitors, it's probably better and more advisable to go dynamically with both hands. Take the big risk.
See there, the route about to be cleaned by the route setters. The rain's still coming down here. Just got some second-hand information from the route setters who've been up looking at the women's route, and apparently the holes are wet, but as soon as it stops raining, it's dry within 10 minutes. So what we need is for it to stop raining for more than 10 minutes, which sadly it hasn't managed to do. And there's Max wake his way back across a very wet floor. And there's Puman, you see him there shrugging his shoulders to see it. It's hard, isn't it? So as we see the men's route being cleaned, no action as yet on the women's route. Sadly, today's action in Xiamen, we've been superb when we've seen it, but the rain causing all sorts of problems. In our last rain break, we were midway through a profile of Jakob Schubert, so let's jump back into that and we'll see you very shortly.
I'm Jakob Schubert, I'm from Innsbruck, Austria, and I'm a professional climber. I started when I was 12 years old, and yeah, I got asked to try out for the team because I look like a talented climber. So I guess, yeah, I wasn't too bad. And yeah, obviously it started slow. I didn't climb 8C from the first day on, but like I said, there were a lot of other strong people and other really motivated climbers to train with, and that always kept me really psyched, and I improved every month. Competing and climbing outdoors is two different things. Climbing outdoors is not only about like really trying really hard all the time. It's also about having a good time with friends and seeing new places on our beautiful planet, and yeah, getting to know new cultures and traveling. And obviously sometimes it's also about trying something really hard and trying to reach your limit, which you don't or do in another way in a competition. I also really like competing, because you're also traveling a lot. You're like with your team, you get to know a lot of international friends, and I've always been an ambitious person, and competing is what I love as well. There are so many different things I like about climbing. Like one huge aspect is that you never really can get bored of it, because I feel like every day you do a new movement, or you find like some new hold, a new structure of rock, and like this you can't really get bored of it. And it's there are also so many different ways how to do climbing. Like you can do bouldering, you can do lead climbing, you can do multi-pitch track climbing. There are like so many different ways. So I feel like when I'm like sick of lead training, I don't know, I do bouldering. If I'm like sick of that rock climbing crack, I drive to another one, and like this you can always have fun. I guess life is about having fun and being happy, and I'm really happy climbing that much, so I don't really think of stopping at all, or probably never. And I mean, some dreams are definitely still doing well in competitions, trying to get world champion again, but then also outdoors, trying to like set my limit even higher, maybe climbing something harder, also opening up new routes, maybe even finding a new crack that no one ever found before. That's some things that I have never done before. Also like bolting new routes. Haven't really tried that out. Yeah, there's so much.
And there you can see the scene here in Xiamen. Sadly, the rain now heavier than ever. It feels like all I've done is talk about rain, with the odd interlude to discuss some climbing, but we can but hopes. And there you see the standings as they are halfway through the men's competition. We've somehow got half the men onto and off the wall. Zhong Wanchun leading the way with Fedor Samolov, Yu Fei Pan, Chiro Koronaga top four. Disappointing day for Max Rudiger. Elan a bit lower down. I just spoke to him actually while the Jakob Schubert profile was on. His hand is very painful. He hit it with his ring finger, his fourth finger. He hit hard against the wall. Not the most dynamic belay ever, and just an awkward fall as well. It's combined, so he's just about okay, but it does look painful. Could well be a bit of a bruise there. Hannes Puman, Javier Blasquez and Loic Timmermans make up the rest of the 13. Well, sadly, the rain as heavy as ever here in Xiamen, and the wind as strong as ever as well. Conditions far from ideal, and I believe the semi-final is once again on hold, so do stay with us. As I say, I'll give you a shout when we're back on, so keep the volume up. We'll see you shortly.
还有一个就是，他是说合同在28、29、30、31这几天录不进去了。 会 bug 吗？
会有吗？
会。那时候听我们营运部的同事讲，他说2月不是才28吗？他就是收到2月份他就会 bug。好像我签1月，假设我签1月29号，
比如说2月没有29号，
他就 bug 了。
哦，这个样子吗？
可以。跟客户签合同，尽量不要挑在这里。
现在我们看到呢，直播的选手已经结束了他的线路突破，感谢我们的各位并线员。A lot of thanks to all of the seconds. Thank you very much.
这么赞成吗？
我都不知道，他也没跟我说过。你跟那个Bouldering见了是吧？
会啊。
到时候不能这样子，就 bug。
好，那么很快我们的比赛将会继续。那么稍后将要进行的是男子难度半决赛的下半区的比赛。
看这么大雨，赶紧给他请教，给放一个。运动员也是觉得我操他妈根据这么久，
那没办法。
我在想会延，假如今天比不完会延到明天吗？应该不会吧。
我有听说假设今天难度赛有泡汤了，就决赛有泡汤了，就是按照预赛跟那个没事我换一首，预赛跟那个半决赛的名次来。不然也没办法。
好的，现场的观众，这里是2017年中国厦门跳房水擂台比赛。那么进行的前部心理，稍后将进行的是男子难度半决赛。那么天气的影响，我们将持续为您带来最新的。
中华台北是吧？就那个梅花是那个青天白日拿来奥运舞嘛。感觉应该是中华台北。
不知道台北的天气
青天白日很少，是吧？我再看一下。
赶紧结束比赛。
大家谁最努力？去年在这边的时候，我们也是在聊天，那个倒影知道在聊天。
到时候会录声音吗？
那时候是有直播，有开直播，
然后你会看到有声音吗？
当然是听到有声音啊。
会这样。
但这个应该是没有开，他有开，他会给你讲。因为你收声音，你这个台机器收的也不好。
他应该，
我们当初是在类似于
应该是用那个，
类似于像下面那台，不是像那边那台。
他那边里面应该会处理。
但直播出去就出去了，后期可能
没有，它是几个画面同时，它可能会切。
他切的时候会跟你讲吗？
不会，
不会跟你讲啊，
不会，他只会跟你说，
他不会1号机1号机。
不，他不会，他只是
好事多磨，那么你们赛场受到的台风大雨的影响。那么现在比赛处于一个暂停的状态。那么当天气有好转的时候，比赛将会再度进行。目前男子难度半决赛已经完成了上半区的比赛。那么经过谢了经理，还有13位选手等待出场。那么等稍后雨势较小的时候，比赛会再次开始。那么我们也将在赛场持续为您带来最新的消息。
看上面不好看，看下面不好看。
下面觉得太高了。
但我没有跟营销要一些票送出去给客户，那有，不太好，他们的票都是这种票，来到场里。我是感觉好像是不是梅雨啊？我就说感觉你名字好熟，你是不是后来他们说要加那个，就是你后来加的那个，是吧？有我吗？我在网上有我，没有过。他说后来说要加几个人，什么侯伟翔，还有一个是谁？张景祥，好像是，应该是。后来那个今年跟我说要加几个人，感觉跟去年讨论一下，那个28、29、30、31，他们有跟我们讲的。我那时候就觉得奇怪，你看，同样是一个算法的问题，你看 Excel 表格都能解决掉这个问题啊，是不是？你输个对，他自己减的话，他能算天数啊，他不是说死板板的一个算数题。你那个系统，你觉得好用吗？糟糕。上次不是录那个车位那个合同吗？那个临阵，我问那个临阵在录嘛，然后录起来那个机票好几百块啊，那个机就快死了。那个是就是当时突然车位从下机嘛，然后你头上那个都能滴水下来，你知道吗？你要低头的时候，对吧？对啊，里面都上面。当时是那个集团的车位嘛，我们弄了很多份，然后但是据说好像是先是说签一份，后来是分开签，那就是吧。我觉得分开签那么多份好痛苦啊！一次性签，它是一式4份，就是你直接写上你的4份好像是吧？不写纸，后面就是这样。活动量也是，就是你可以一家公司，就是那它是有公车的，也有私人的。那在工作和一家公司签2份嘛，公车和私车嘛，然后各家公司不统计，这样你们量会少很多。但是各家公司肯定不愿意做这个数字，行政部不愿意。对呀，那么累啊！他们都小公司就算了，你看现在建工、人当这种。
Well, I'm amazed to say the men's semi-final is about to get underway once again here in Xiamen. We had the cleaning break and another slight pause for the rain, but I've been told we're about to get underway. It's Martin Teklas who will be out next. The rain doesn't seem to have let up much at all. But the men's route somehow staying something resembling dry. Dry enough. Yes, poor old Eddie in the green shorts, disappearing up the stairs. IFSC photographer's got to do his job even when it's raining. Doesn't look like he's having a barrel of laughter. The warm sun in Briançon probably feels a long time ago. warm sun in Xiamen feels a long time ago. As I say, it's been beautiful weather all week, only to fail us when we need it most. And there is Martin approaching the wall, and you can see how close we are to the action. Couldn't be a much better place. Josh Levin still off chatting to the athletes. It's just me on my lonesome for now. Josh trying to find out what conditions are like, how they're feeling. The ones who are already out of isolation and into call zone. Martin underway. It'll be Germany followed by Germany. Christoph Hanke will climb immediately after him. For those of you just joining us, we are midway through an extremely interrupted semi-final here in Xiamen due to rain accompanied by strong winds, which is a pretty bad combination for lead climbing, but miraculously somehow the men's route remains dry, and Martin Teklas, the 14th climber out, marking the start of the second half of this semi-final. And as I say, his compatriot Christoph Hanke will be out after him. Jan Hoyer did not make the semi-finals. He's also here in Xiamen, but he's not climbing the semi-finals. Didn't make it yesterday. Not a great day for him. Martin Teklas qualified 13th, climbs 14th in the semi-final. And now we'll begin to see just how well the route is held up against the rain. You can see the wind as well, strong as ever. His t-shirt blown all over the place. The rain coming down. These are pretty desperate conditions. Somehow this men's semi-final progressing, but Martin now onto those holes that are, we're told, quite humid and tricky to hang on to. Had a good day last time in Wujiang, finished 9th. In a way a bit frustrating because you're one place off a final, but it smashed his personal best placing in a World Cup. And he drops it again. He didn't like the look of doing that move dynamically, tried to do it statically. We lose another climber on the move out to the round balls. Josh, welcome back.
Thanks.
Josh back with me in our commentary area.
Yeah.
Let's have another look at, this is Martin coming down. Need to go back a bit. That's Max. We'll get there in the end.
And as we've seen with this move specifically, you need to be a little bit taller to need to do it statically. Some of the shorter guys have to be a little more dynamic when they try and make this move. So unfortunately Martin tried to go a little more static, but I think in the end it's easier done dynamically. But good couple of comp results for him this trip. Again, that 9th in Wujiang last weekend was really, really strong. He's definitely emerging as one of the top German lead competitors, so really cool to see him perform so well.
Makes his way off the bottom of the wall. Not looking too impressed. What can Christoph Hanke do? Germany followed by Germany. These two, I was sitting right in front of these two on the bus on the way into the venue this morning, seemed in good spirits. Very positive about their chances.
Chris, another one of those climbers that really powerful, very strong in the bouldering aspect of the lead climbing event, which is in this style has definitely progressed a long way in the last couple of seasons. Definitely tends to favor much more bouldery sequences followed by mediocre to poor rest rather than continuous hard-ish climbing. So we've seen a lot more boulder style competitors tend to do better at these kind of competitions. Chris definitely an epitome of one of those.
Yeah, he's had an exceptionally consistent season. Christoph Hanke, 6th in Vila, the highlight. Good performance in the final there, and then he's made every other semi-final to this stage, up to and including Xiamen.
Oh dear.
We lose him. That very low slab section, that's disappointing for him. I wonder if that is related to the rain. He's undoing his knot aggressively. He doesn't look especially over the moon. He's been made to wait a long time. It's certainly not easy for any of the competitors. He had a long time to wait. Let's have another look.
So you can see really slightly that his hips came just away from the wall there. And it's really critical for a climb that's this vertical, especially with holds that are really poor, that you keep your hips as close to the wall as you possibly can. And so I think with that bouldery move that he tried to perform right there with the press, Campus trying to get his foot up, I think he wanted to be a little more close to the wall with his hips, and as soon as they pulled out far enough away from the wall, he just lost momentum, wasn't able to control it.
Do you think that's a flexibility thing?
Possibly, yeah. I think being more flexible is always helpful. For that move specifically, you've seen people do it a couple of different ways, and I think he was just really in the mentality like, I want to try and get through this as quickly as possible. Pretty smart decision on his part to commit to it at least. Unfortunately, his hips carried out a little bit too far from the wall, but yeah, being flexible is always more helpful. We're just unsure if it would have been more helpful in that situation or not.
Domen Skofic makes his way out. There he is. He looks like you can see the funny side of it. He's only about 7 or 8 meters away, and he was grinning as he came out, as if he was just slightly bemused by the whole thing. Of course, the overall standings over for him effectively. He won't retain his crown from 2016, so he can afford to be a little more light-hearted about the whole thing. A bit further down the order, Stefano Gasolfi and Roman Negronge feel a lot more serious.
Domen's another one of those athletes that I've personally known for a very long time growing up. We're the same age, competing in the Youth World Championship Series when we were younger. And so it's been pretty cool to watch him, again, have so much success in the Youth World Championships, have a couple World Championship titles, and then again, last year he's just on immense form coming out and claiming the overall title and really, really just having his breakout season.
Hasn't quite followed it up this year. The bouldering season just seemed to kill his momentum a bit, his career momentum, I mean. He didn't seem to get much out of the bouldering season and then couldn't quite seem to get into the lead season, but something clicked. I think the last 2 or 3 events, he's looked something close to the old Domen, and it's really good to see.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. World ranking number 3 right now, and hoping to improve upon that.
I mean, he won the overall title last year. I don't want to get too down. I mean, he's still in 4th place in the overall standings. It's not been a disaster by any means, but after the heights of last year, it hasn't quite been all he would have been hoping for. But made 3 out of 6 finals up until now, and aiming for a 7th here at very damn Xiamen.
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting to see him as a lead climber come out and still be able to challenge the new guard of boulders that have been doing so well recently in World Cup lead competitions. So Charlie has left the booth for a second, so you'll have to bear with me for the next couple of minutes while Domen works his way up the wall here. So you can see his really relying on that left heel hook in order to keep himself solid. Looks pretty comfortable here, actually. Getting his right toe up right before this big dynamic move. Looks like Charlie's back in the booth.
Yeah, just chatting to one of our officials. Let's just have a look at Domen before I say anything, because just lining up that big move left, and we lose Domen. Big surprise. And he's still smiling. As I say, he looked as if he was taking the whole day with a pinch of salt, to be honest, when he walked out.
Yeah, that's for sure. And again, we see another one of the competitors that aren't quite as tall try the static approach to this move, and you really have to go dynamically.
See that again. Yeah, he tried to hold it. And apparently, I'm told, if you're going to do it statically, the way to do it is to keep the right hand on and slowly cross the left hand through. Whereas Domen kind of slapped the left hand. I think that's one of the hardest ways of doing it. But of course, you want to minimize the risk. So yeah, I just disappeared for a minute, excuse me, to chat to one of our officials. Some bad news. Unfortunately, the women's semi-final here in Xiamen is cancelled. And what the IFSC officials have decided to do is that we will take the top 8 women from the qualifiers and have a final tonight. However, as you will know if you've been listening to us or if you saw the qualifying results, there are 13 women tied with 2 tops from the qualifiers, so we will have a 13 strong women's final tonight but no semi-final. And they are not the up-to-date results. We've had climbers 14, 15, 16, Martin Teklas, Christoph Hanger and Domin Skovic. Marcello Bombardi, winner in Chamonix, will be out on the wall next, and he's currently at the bottom just going through his individual observation time. Yeah, so as I say, unfortunately, women's semi-final cancelled. So the IFSC officials will run a final with the top 8 from the qualifiers, but because there was a massive tie in the qualifying round for the women, that will mean 13 women, all of whom got 2 tops, will qualify for the final this evening. So no women's semi-final, sadly enough. I don't envy the IFSC officials today. Pretty much everyone here is making it up as they go along, trying to make the best of the situation. When we started climbing earlier on, the weather looked good. We had bad weather last night. We've had good weather all week, and I have to say it looked pretty promising when we started, and it just hasn't proved to be the case. So trying to figure it out on the hoof, and we will have a 13-woman final tonight based on the ranking of the qualifiers. So not ideal by any means, but we're doing our best to bring you as much climbing as we can. Marcello Bombardi, as I said, World Cup winner in Chamonix, currently sitting in 5th place in the overall standings. A couple of finals for him, as well as that win in Chamonix. Briançon made the final there just a few days after the Chamonix win. Haven't seen him in a final since. Been knocking on the door, 9th in Arco.
We actually just saw a shot of one of the upper slopers up there, and you can actually see there's quite a bit of water that's accumulated on the hold itself. So we'll keep you updated on how that progresses, but definitely is really going to be interesting to see when athletes get up to that spot how they deal with that water.
Yeah, Josh Levin just pointing out on our screen exactly where he means. It's on the second, the higher of those 2 round blue volumes.
And Marcello looking moderately composed here, although it's looking a little bit more uncomfortable at this moment. Oh dear.
And you might have heard that big shout of frustration. It's a really tricky one because we just see Marcello again. I'll resume in a second. Just leave it off. That is a slow death, isn't it? You can see him falling.
I find it interesting he tried to go out right hand first, whereas looks like the other athletes have had success getting to that move. Have gone out left hand to the volume out left and then come in right hand. So might have just felt a little bit more comfortable with the right foot on that volume, but as we can see, your hands are facing the directions you don't necessarily want them to be facing in order to control the swing. So unfortunately we had to come off of that move.
There we are. In the background, sometimes in the commentary box we get stuck up in the rafters of a big arena and you feel detached from the whole event. Personally, I'd rather be here with people walking past and feeling like you're really part of it, but as I say, short of putting us on the crux of the women's route, they couldn't really have put us any closer. But yeah, I was about to say with Marcello and all the other male competitors, right now, I have to say here in Xiamen, it doesn't have the feel of a big World Cup semi-final, but you get just as many ranking points if you win here as if you do in Chamonix in the Place du Mont Blanc. And Marcello there really frustrated because the climbers have been here a week, and as I say, these are World Cup competitions, and the fact that it's rain delayed and everything else doesn't actually affect the ranking points you get. It means just as much. The athletes be more frustrated than anyone with conditions.
And Marcello had a really good season so far. He actually won the World Cup in Xiamen earlier this year. So again, really strong athlete, and definitely excited to see how he does at the final competition this year in Kran.
Yeah, just under a month until we're in the Slovenian mountains. Just to let you know as well, there is a potential issue for later on with the men's final. The men's final route will be on the right hand side of the wall, which, as you'll know if you've been watching us, you'll be an expert in Xiamen meteorology if you have been watching us, is the wet side of the wall. So there is a potential that there could be a problem with the men's final route. Excuse me, as if there wasn't enough problems already. But if there is, and they are not able to run a men's final tonight because of the weather, the rankings from this semi-final will determine the rankings for the World Cup. So that means we can't confirm it because we don't know if the final will run, but if the final doesn't run, whoever does the best in today's semi-final will be the World Cup winner if they don't run the final. As I say, big if, we don't know, and we won't be able to confirm anything. But as I was just saying, it feels slightly low-key here in the rain, with the crowd thinning out and stopping and starting, but you get just as many ranking points to win here as you do anywhere else. And the climbers, particularly those gunning for the overall title, need to keep their heads in this. Haibin Q of China will be the next climber out. Just looking up the route setters once again up in the cherry picker, having a look at the route. The women's route is pretty saturated actually. Earlier on, when it hadn't been raining for that long, the route dried out quickly. 10 minutes was drying it out, but to me, from down here on the ground, it certainly looks as if it would take an awful lot longer to dry it out now. The wall's seeping, rain coming through the bolt holes, the joins in the wall panels, and actually in a couple of cases from behind the holes. So I think very good, albeit tough decision for the IFSC officials to cancel the women's semi-final. But the men's semi-final, as we understand it, is still going ahead, and as I say, if there's not a final tonight, it will decide the rankings of the World Cup. Obviously at this stage we can't confirm that, so it could be a bit of a tense afternoon for everyone watching, seeing if they have to climb again. Very difficult situation in Xiamen. Rain coming down harder than ever, the wind blowing harder than ever. You can see it's Gore-Tex jackets all round, the black Kailash jackets of the officials. That's a couple of members of our route setting team. Tough for them as well. They've been here since Monday. Some of them have done back-to-backs as well from the last World Cup.
Wow.
See there, that's
there's water just dripping off the finish hold right there.
I'm just trying to figure out if that's the men's route. It is,
yeah.
That is not good. So that's the top of the men's route, and the men's semi-final is still going.
Into the wall.
Yeah, you can see the wall sadly seeping. The men's route also wet. So unfortunately myself and Josh Levin have another bit of a break, because I've just been told that there will be a half-hour delay to the men's semi-final, So the women's semi-final cancelled. Men's semi-final, we're attempting to run it, but we do now have a half-hour delay. I do apologise, it's not ideal. The officials are doing the best they can. You can see there, that is the results as they stand in the men's semi-final. 9 climbers still to come. So apologies for all the delays and postponements here in Xiamen. Not a lot we can do about the weather, and it is raining and it's windy and it's not ideal, but we will try and bring you the remainder of this men's semi-final, but there will be at least a half-hour delay. Hope to see you shortly.
下咱们现场的各位女子难度半决赛。由于天气的原因无法进行，所以女子难度半决赛已经取消了。那么今天晚上将进行女子决赛，那么将根据预赛的成绩来确定哪些运动员能够进入到下一轮。男子半决赛目前我们还在等待，我们将持续给您带来最新的消息。Attention please, the women league semi-final is cancelled. Attention please, the women league semi-final is cancelled. 现在已经显得非常的明亮，应该语音很快就能停下来。现在我们的定线员要回到岩壁上，再次检查一下我们的线路是否有具备比赛的条件。那么如果说一切条件都是好的，那么比赛很快就会开始。那么目前我们还剩下的8位运动员已经回到了隔离区等待，那么将等待最后的官方正式的通知。那么相信天公作美，今天一定能够正常的进行男子的半决赛。那么在此，我们也非常期待稍后的比赛。同时，我们也邀请各位观众留在现场，与我们共同期待稍后继续进行的比赛。 现在是北京时间的2点30分，现在是北京时间2点30分。那么在此通知一下，稍后将要进行的比赛。那么等到天气好转的时候，男子难度的半决赛，剩余的6、8位运动员将会出场再次比赛。那么在3点半的时候，在今天下午的3点半将要准时进行的是男子、女子速度预赛。那么速度预赛将会在我们身后的客房中心的室内岩壁上进行速度预赛，比赛时间是3点30分。那么目前我们的地勤员需要再次回到岩壁检查一下我们的线路。那么如果一旦具备比赛条件，我们的比赛将会再次开始。我们邀请各位留在赛场，与我们共同等待。 好的，刚刚我们听到了非常振奋人心的消息，我们地铁员在线路上经过了线路的安全检查之后，认定线路是可以继续进行比赛的。那么我们的比赛将会在5分钟之内正式开始。我们的比赛将会在5分钟之内开始，所以咱们现场的观众千万不要离开我们的赛场。The men needed seat fellow will start in 5 minutes. The men needed seat fellow will start in 5 minutes. 现场的各位观众，您现在所在的是2017中国厦门特航世界杯攀岩赛的比赛现场。Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to IFSC Channel World Cup Xiamen 2017. The men league semi-final will start in 7 minutes. The men league semi-final will start in 7 minutes. 那么，请咱们现场各位工作人员、各位裁判人员、各位保护人员做好准备，比赛马上就要开始了。同时，也邀请现场的各位观众做好准备，我们的比赛很快就要开始了。现场各位观众，在比赛过程中，运动员需要各位的加油助威。那么，请记得千万不要吝啬咱们各自的掌声和呐喊声。那么在咱们场地中央时刻发出轰鸣的，这是咱们在每一站比赛都必不缺少的这样的一个摄像机。在 在比赛前的1个星期，来自世界各地的定线员在岩壁上进行线路的制定工作，将各种各样的支点按照他们的设计摆放在岩壁上方。那么构建出了我们在各位面前的这样一些精彩绝人的线路。那么在场地的左侧是稍后将要进行的男子半决赛的线路。我们看到刚刚已经出场的有18位选手，目前还有最后的8位选手尚未出场。那么他们将在岩壁上带来更加精彩的展示。在难度的半决赛中，采取的是倒序出场的选手，也就是意味着在预赛中排名更好的选手出场越靠后。那么现在出场的是预赛排名第8位，那么顺序是出场顺序第18位的一位选手，现在正在岩壁后方即将出场。那么让我们拭目以待。那么在场后还有9位运动员尚未出场。那么接下来让我们来看一看，究竟是哪位运动员在我们的岩壁后方进行着最后的准备。现场的各位观众，掌声欢迎在比赛中并列第8位，来自中国队徐海滨。
We're back in action here in Xiamen. If you're next door, making a cup of tea, making your breakfast in Europe, we're back in action. Rain delay over. Hybrid crew of China climbing looked excellent yesterday in the qualifying round. How have the holds dealt with the rain? Quite a few people, I think, surprised the climbers are back on the wall. Caught the crowd by surprise somewhat. But yes, we're underway again. Been off for half an hour. Top of the men's route, as we saw from our wall-mounted camera earlier on, still pretty wet. The route setters have been doing their bit trying to dry it out. Umbrellas absolutely compulsory here in Xiamen. So yeah, let's have a look how he copes with the slab, because it's been damp. Friction not what it might be, still quite humid. Had a quick chat on the way down here actually to Dom and Skofic, who understandably was a bit hacked off, but said he, a bit like we guessed at the time from the look on his face, he wasn't too fussed. Taking everything with a bit of a pinch of salt. It's still a bit hacked off. It's a long week to wait for a competition to come around, and when it doesn't happen, it's very frustrating. But not much anyone can do about that. You can see there the two big blue volumes there. We've lost quite a lot of climbers, most recently Marcello Bombardi. Was the last climber out before the latest rain delay. Hybin is climber 18 of 26. We're getting towards the stage where we might actually get a full men's semi-final done, which is something of a miracle when you think about what the conditions were like. How have conditions changed? He doesn't look overly keen on committing to leave this slab. See the quick draw above him blowing around, and the fact that it's not raining suddenly makes the wind a good thing, because it dries the holes rather than getting them wet. So the wind, which has been causing all the problems because it's been blowing the rain into the wall, could suddenly become a good thing, provided the rain holds off. We saw Loic Timmermans slipping off this hold. That's Rudiger as well, falling off on the jump up to the blue volume. So how has it evolved? Are the holds dry? Are they wet? Let's see. Setting himself in position. It seems a long time ago since we saw anyone attempt this move. Jumping up to the blue volume, so left foot slips, that won't help his confidence. Lines it up and makes it work. Looked pretty solid, the foot slip just before. Obviously didn't put him off too much. Charlie Bosco here, if you're just tuning in Xiamen, we've had a massively rain disrupted men's semi-final and the women's semi-final sadly cancelled. We will have a final tonight with the 8 top ranked climbers on the women's side of things from the qualifiers. But as you'll know, if you check the results, there's a big tie in the women's qualifiers, so 13 women will take part in the final. So no semi-final for the women. The reason that the men can carry on, the women can't, for those of you just joining us, is that the women's route is on the right-hand side, the wetter side of the wall here in Xiamen. It takes the brunt of the wind, the direction as it currently is, and with the rain, this is not a good combination. So the men's route has stayed largely dry. I use the term dry loosely, but the women's route pretty much saturated, seeping through the panels, the joins in the wall, some of the bolt holes and even some of the holes. So women's semi-final cancelled, but there will be a women's final. As for the men, if there is no final, because the men's final route is on the right hand side, the wetter side of the wall, if there's no men's final route, the ranking for the World Cup will be decided by the result of this semi-final. Josh Levin was with me earlier, but he actually had to head back. She had to head back inside because he had to get warmed up for speed practice. I have to say, with 3 hours between the start of the lead semi-final and when he needed to start warming up, it never really occurred to me that time might be a factor, but weather conditions being as they are, that's what's ended up happening. So, I've been crew, as I say, onto the honeycomb volume, upper section of the wall. This is the section that's been particularly affected by the rain. The venue's in something of a hole, so the rain gets stronger as you go higher. And he's onto the arrow-shaped volume. Now we'll begin to head up to the right, the black volume. This is a superb effort from him in trying conditions. You can see the rain has started again. He goes up with the right hand, drops it there. That'll be enough as it stands for a place in the final. Long way to go, of course. Yuki Hada out next, Team Japan. Let's have another look. See the quick draw blowing in the wind. Conditions so difficult. So he lands the left hand, and I think he might have just been going for this in the hope of getting a plus. He's out of there. So as I say, Yuki Hada out next. So Yuki Hada, Team Japan, there he is, ready to go. 6 Japanese men in semi-final here in Xiamen. No need to think now, sadly, about the women, because their semi-final cancelled. We hope we will be able to bring you a men's and women's final later. Do apologise for all the inconvenience if you got up early to watch us. Double apologies, because it must have been an early start if you were in Europe. See there, Jong-won Chon. He of 2 overall World Cup titles in the bouldering, currently leading the way, and that was enough for a second place, tied on score with Sverre Samolov and Yufei Pan for Haibin Ku, but count back to the previous round bumped him up to second. Had it onto the slab, and judging by what we've just seen, conditions not too bad at all. Yuki Hada now, heading off the slab, steeper section of the wall. It doesn't let up much in terms of angle from here on out. He's just heading up now to those couple of crimps, as I said, where we lost Loic Timmermans, and then it'd be the big move out to the right, and there's a couple of steadier moves, and then he's up towards the arrow-shaped volumes. As ever was the semi-final progresses, he begins to learn the routes. Lining up that jump to the right, doesn't look overly keen, and that's why. And another big thud on the wall. It's a couple of fairly unsympathetic catches from the belays, it has to be said. And he hit the wall pretty hard there. Let's have another look, including the fall would be good to see actually, because yeah, didn't look the nicest of falls. Let's have a look. So he really didn't look like he was keen on the move, and he caught his leg in the rope as he went. He hit the wall pretty much ankle first, not ideal. Yuki Hada being untied, 19 climbers gone here in Xiamen, 7 still to come. Now, I mentioned it earlier, if you are just tuning in, maybe that ranking for the World Cup in the men's competition is decided by what happens in this semi-final. If the men's final route is wet this evening, it's too wet on that side of the wall for the men's final route to take place. It will be decided by what happens here in the semi. You can see where the climbers are emerging from. The reason they're emerging out of that small hole is that that's really the only section of the wall right where those green mats are just being shoved into place now that's still dry, so the climbers can at least emerge onto the wall without getting their shoes wet. So that's why they've gone from walking across the stage to appearing at that small hole. Masahiro Higuchi, latest climber to try his luck. And already we can tell you some of the climbers who will be in the final. Jong-won Chon will be there. Those 3 tied behind him will be watching nervously. Rain just about let up here in Xiamen. I think fish would have been happier than people for the last couple of hours. pleased to say it has let off. I think we are going to get this men's semi-final done. It's certainly been a bit of an epic for all of the athletes and officials, but I think we are going to get it done. Hero now off the slab, and now we're getting to know this men's route really well. It's coming up to 2.5 hours since we started our broadcast. It hasn't always felt like we've had much climbing to watch, but we do now. As I say, the route becoming increasingly familiar. And it was these tiny crimps, and it seemed earlier on that I suspect conditions have improved on them, but it was those tiny crimps earlier on that were causing a lot of problems. Nails the jump out to the right, no problems so far. Chalks up, begins to head right, so it's off the 2 round volumes and on to the black triangular volumes. Masahiro Higuchi looking pretty good here. I wonder if conditions are now better than they were half an hour ago. Just judging by the calibre of climber that was slipping off low down on seemingly innocuous moves. Masahiro cruising really here. Are we going to see the top of the route? When we started the semi-final, I predicted we would, because we saw an amazing effort from Jongwon Chon, who's already guaranteed his place in the final, by the way, assuming it goes ahead. We saw an amazing effort from Jongwon Chon, and the route looked toppable, but conditions intervened. And now it suddenly looks a lot less certain than it did. Masahiro, as I say, looking in control now. He'll head up to the honeycomb volume, and the diamond, and then the arrow, and then the black. And then he really is close. Getting plenty. Gamba shout the Japanese team, and it's not enough. He spat off. And depending on how conditions have evolved and how the remaining climbers get on, I suspect that might be enough. We'll bring you up to date when we have the score. Let's have another look. To me, he looked solid up until this point, but just getting his hips close enough to the wall on that volume proved the crux. Josh Levin, who was with me for the first couple of hours of this very disruptive broadcast, was talking about that, the importance of keeping your hips nice and close into the wall, otherwise you get spat off. Basic climbing technique, and it seemed like Masahiro just couldn't quite figure out a way to get them in that time. But a good effort, and as it stands, enough to put him in the final, but strong lineup still to come. Hanwoo Kim will be climbing next. Hanwoo Kim will be out next. Stefano Gasolfi after him. It all gets very complicated, I have to say, at that stage, because it gets very complicated at that stage because Stefano and Roman both gunning for the overall title in 2017, and they were tied in the qualifiers. If they're tied in the semi-final, it does start to get interesting. Huge pressure on the final, and with the men's final being on the right hand side of the wall, could cause a few problems. So the IFSC officials team by no means done with problems to solve today, but Hanwoo Kim is underway. Third last time out in Wuzhen. Brilliant result for him. Jongwon Chon, his compatriot, was down in 6th. Still to come, Stefano Gasolfi, Roman de Grange, Yoshiyuki Ogata, Tomoa Narasaki and Kokora Fuji. The maths for Roman de Grange as far as the overall title goes, just to digress slightly, is very simple. There are all sorts of outcomes, but if he wins here, he takes the overall title. So we won't get bogged down in the various permutations. A win from Roman de Grange, and Xiamen wins in the overall title for 2017. He's in a very difficult position. As I say, this semi-final started 2 hours 40 minutes ago. Roman de Grange has still got to wait a bit longer before he climbs. Really difficult position. Stefano Gasolfi just walked past me. He'll be out next. But in the meantime, it's Han-Woo Kim. Missed the first semi-final in Vila, but then made every semi-final, and then last week in Wujiang up to a final. 3rd place. Amazing result. It was a great day for South Korea. Jane Kim bagging another podium. Jongwon Chon 6th. This man here, Han-Woo Kim, was 3rd. Jongwon Chon currently leading the way, so he'll be through to the final, as will Haibin Ku, and then Fedir Samoilov and Yufei Pan will be watching nervously. So he's now on to the crimps that were causing a lot of problems earlier, and he's lining up the move to the blue volume, and the wind just seems to have picked up a notch. Funny thing when you climb in wind, it doesn't really affect you physically, but mentally it's really hard to concentrate with that noise, and you get thrown a bit by the thought of the wind affecting you more than it actually affecting you. Han-Woo Kim nails the dyno, didn't look like he was really looking forward to it, but he gets it done. And he can carry on, and things ease off just for a couple of moves now. Getting plenty of encouragement from the crowd that's left. Pleased to say the crowd once again growing here. A lot of them disappeared earlier on, back in the venue. Han-Woo Kim is gunning for a place in the finals here. He's got to get higher than we can see on the screen right now. It's actually a couple of moves on from there, enough to secure a place in the finals. Those of you just surfacing to Saturday night's festivities, we're live in Xiamen. Immensely disrupted men's semi-final on a cancelled women's semi-final. Sadly enough, we've been having rain delays. We've had wind, we've had rain, and people falling off low down due to bad conditions. And it seems like we have reasonable conditions. Half a dozen climbers to go, including this man, Han-Woo Kim, and then out next it will be Stefano Gasolfi. Getting plenty of encouragement. He's heading up now to the arrow-shaped volume, and you could just see he was really beginning to tire before he got there. It'll be enough for now. Let's have another look. He slapped with the left hand, trying to pinch. That's such a powerful way of holding that volume. Even if you were fresh, it'd be a tough one to stick. Kim just being untied.
出场的运动员，我们也要非常隆重的介绍一下，现在也是在隔离区等待，在上个星期苏州吴江世界杯稍后出场的运动员取得了非常好的成绩。
So Stefano Ghisolfi will be out next. And it's, as I mentioned, when we have more than 6 World Cups in any given discipline, the worst score of each climber is taken off their rankings. So it's not quite as easy as just adding up all their scores and then figuring out who's got the most, because you also have to take off their lowest score, and obviously with World Cups still to come, you don't know what their lowest score is. You know what their current worst result in a World Cup is, but they might end up getting a worse result in the next one. So it does make calculating the overall rankings midway through the season somewhat tricky. It's easy enough at the end, but at this stage it's difficult. But the maximum score that Stefano Ghisolfi can get is 519. And that would be enough to catch Romain de Grandge. There are various situations where he could catch Romain de Grandge in the overall standings. He needs a very, very good performance here, at least. We won't go down the road of, well, if he gets 3rd and Romain gets 5th, but Stefano pretty much needs to win here to give himself a really good chance of taking the overall title. Second here. And of course as well, it depends on how Romain de Grandge gets on. But yeah, Stefano under a bit of pressure if he wants the overall title. He's certainly behind right now with a lot of work to do and needs a good performance. He's on to the slab here in Xiamen. Remember, he won here last year. Great moment. We had a lovely summer's evening, kind of hard to imagine right now, but he won here last year. And Stefano now a couple of moves away from those tricky crimps below the big jump out to the right. He looks like he's just trying to figure out how to place his feet. You can see he's gritting his teeth in the effort. Perhaps one symptom of the conditions is they play with your head a bit, over grip a bit, push a bit too hard on the feet. You lose that nice light relaxed feeling of when you're climbing well. And Stefano looking slightly jerky here. Certainly doesn't look at his best, his brilliant best. As I say, when he won here last year, he looked unstoppable. So those top 3, by the way, as they're coming across your screen, are all guaranteed their place in the final. Remainder of the top 8 potentially in the drop zone, depending on what Stefano Ghisolfi and then the 4 climbers after him can do. Now the crowd comes to life. The venue MC just reminding him this is the guy that won here last year. No problem with the dyno, possibly finding his rhythm a bit now. So Stefano's taking a long rest, now up into the black volumes. Time has not been an issue for anyone actually in this semi-final. Stefano once again looking slightly jerky in his movements, but he's still going. Really being buffeted by the wind now. Head out left towards that arrow volume. There it is. We just that's how you latch that volume. So Stefano Gasolfi, who didn't look massively comfortable on much of this route, is now closing in on the top, and he's latched the black hold. He will be in the final, we know that. But this may decide the ranking. So it could be absolutely crucial. Securing a place in the final is not good enough. We may have rain problems affecting the final. Stefano Gasolfi, he won here in Xiamen last year, and he drops it a couple of moves to the top. We'll see where that leaves him. Be enough right now. Will it be enough eventually? Time will tell. 4 climbers still to come. So this was him on the jump move earlier on, a bit lower down. Just about made it work. Nicely done. Korafuji just made his way past me. This was Stefano. This was when he was really beginning to fight. Just being untied. That looks like it took plenty out of him. As I say, he looked tired low down. I suspect it's probably a symptom of having tried to stay warm for over 3 hours. And that was my head, just encroaching on the shot of Stefano Gasolfi. Apologies there. I'll shift my position. So yes, Romain Desgrange out now. So much riding on this climb potentially if there's not a final for the men tonight, as we fear there might not be. So Romain Desgrange, possibly the biggest climb of his life, and it is in a wet semi-final in Xiamen. I bet he never thought that would happen. But he's got to keep his head in the game. There is so much potentially riding on this. If the men's final is cancelled, there's a possibility it might be. This could be the climb that wins him the overall title for 2017. Needs to keep his head in the game. So Roman untroubled as yet. As I say, just seen Stefano Gasolfi. They were tied on the in the qualifying round. So need to be separated here in the semis. Roman, up to the time he crimps, not a man you'd imagine he's going to struggle to hold them. Phenomenal crimp strength, Romain Desgrange. Just got to be careful, as I said earlier, not to overgrip. If the holds are dry, they're good. He's manufactured a nice rest, so it's clever climbing from Romain Desgrange. He's trying a completely new method. Math is very simple for him in terms of the overall standings. A win here is enough. And we lose him low down. Romain Desgrange will not make the final here in Xiamen. I said it was the biggest climb of his life. Stefano Gasolfi absolutely powering up, and Romain Desgrange drops it. Let's have another look. It was higher up than this. This was lower down. He found a really clever rest on that volume. That one there, a bit higher up. Let's have a look. He shakes out. And it was just as he went to place his right foot. He makes his way off past me, looking none too impressed. And I can understand why. Let's have another look at it. Just popped off on those crimps. They've been causing all sorts of problems, but it looked as if they might be slightly drier, slightly better. And Romain de Grange's chance to seal the overall World Cup title after a long career of battling and battling just disappeared before him. He's certainly wasted an amazing opportunity to win it here. Still got Kranja, of course. Stefano Ghisolfi can't actually claim the overall title, but it will all come down to Slovenia if Stefano has a good day in the finals later on. So Romain de Grange, big surprise. Shock for him. If he'd won here in Xiamen, it would have been enough. Let's have a look at the results that come along across the top of your screen. See where that leaves things. So Jongwon Chon still leading the way. Stefano Ghisolfi second place, 45 for him. So Yoshiyuki Ogata, the third to last climber out. So the top 5, as you look at it, all guaranteed their place in the finals, but as I've said, this could actually be the ranking for the World Cup if the men's final is cancelled. So Yufei Pan will be in the final. I was chatting to his coach yesterday. They were really unhappy with his performance in the qualifiers. They'll be pretty happy with that. Yoshiyuki Ogata, vastly successful this year. Gunning for a place in the final. Only entered 2 World Cups before this, as well as a lot of youth competitions. 2 lead World Cups, I should say. Made the final of both. And looked great in the qualifiers yesterday, but we've just seen a massive surprise in the form of Romain de Grange dropping it from these crimps. Gamba shot the Japanese team, and Yoshiyuki Ogata gets himself set. You can hear them shouting through my microphone. Looking at that big blue volume. And he drops it, heading for the blue volume, and Yoshiyuki Ogata, who hasn't missed a final in the 2 lead World Cups he's entered so far and had a fantastic Youth World Championships in Innsbruck just over a month ago, is down. And we have just 2 climbers left. That means the top 6 climbers, as it stands, guaranteed their place in the final. Let's have another look. It's this move to the blue volume. It's caused all sorts of problems. Looking at him, he had a great shot of him. You could see in his eyes, didn't look that convinced. He's trying to figure out where to put the left foot. Eventually went for it. And never even landed the right hand. Left hand landed okay. Surely he wasn't trying to do the move one-handed. Let's have another look. The right hand was far behind. Oh, we just lost the replay. Let's try and get that back. Sanders Puman from earlier. He wasn't too happy with how he got on. Here's Yoshiyuki. Okay, now we can see it. So you see him, thinks about putting the left foot here, putting it there. Yeah, I think he was trying to do the move one-handed. We've seen no one else attempt to do that. He slapped up with the right. It was far too late by the time he'd realised he got it wrong. And Tomoe Narasaki is out. Eddie IFSC photographer, don't want to land him in it too much, but hey, why not? He predicting a win for Tomoe here, which I have to say I would have laughed at 2 weeks ago, but having seen what he did in Wujiang, seems more than possible. Tomoe, as we're used to seeing in the bouldering, springing up, so dynamic in his movements, fired up those bottom couple of moves. now onto the slab. Not a bad slab climber either. Let's have a look. Where are the results? Across the top of your screen, I'm told. There they are. So John Won-chon, another final for him, assuming it goes ahead. Tomohiro Narasaki, second to last climber, so as I mentioned, top 6 now guaranteed their place in the final. Stefano Ghisolfi in the running very much for the overall title in 2017 will go through. Romain Desgrange had something of a nightmare, it must be said, falling off low down before he even got to the blue round volumes. So Koichiro Kuranaga, 6th place for him, he's safely through. 7th and 8th. Watching nervously, Masahiro Higuchi misses out. Ditto Domin Skofic. Tomoa lining it up. He's not going to struggle with moves like that. Compose himself now and then launch into the upper section of the route. Or just launch himself into the upper section of the route without composing himself. The bouldering tactic, just get as many moves done as you can before you get too pumped. Seems to be working. Tomoa now barely pulls for breath into the black volumes. This is exactly what we'd expect to see from him. Only been off the ground about a minute and a half, already up to the honeycomb volume. Now he's having to fight though, Tomoa. Looked quite an uncomfortable position, but he made it work. And he's looking strong here, Tomoa. Tipped for the win by those in the know. He'll head up to that black volume. He eats moves like that for breakfast, Tomohiro Narasaki. No problem at all. How far can he get on this route? When conditions were good earlier on, this route looked very toppable. Suddenly, it doesn't look quite so toppable unless your name is Tomohiro Narasaki, and I think he knew it was over. He had a final push, and on his way down, he'll be in the final. Tomohiro Narasaki, great effort from him. Big smile on his face. Looks like he enjoyed that. Can't get his knot undone. Let's have another look. So this was jump up for the 2 round balls. It's never going to challenge him too much. That was the move up to the black volume. I have to say, the route looked toppable, but I think the pump came on very quickly for Tomoa. He climbed quickly, but it caught up with him in the end. Here's his compatriot, Kokoro Fuji, a man that until last week in Wujiang seemed like the better of the two out of Tomoa and Kokoro across all, or certainly across lead and boulder. But Tomoa, startling performance in Wujiang and the same here in Xiamen. He's underway, flying up the lower section just as Tomoa did. So Kokoro will be the last climber in action in the semi-final here today. Just tuning in, we had a cancelled women's semi-final and a massively disrupted, almost chaotic feeling men's semi-final. The IFSC officials doing their best in very, very trying circumstances. Kokoro Fuji, the last climber in action.
看到这位球员的攀登慢悠悠的，有香有吃。好的，来到了关键的位置。
So Kokoro lining up that big jump up to the blue volumes. No problem at all. It's even easier than it did for Tomoa, these bouldering athletes, or primarily bouldering athletes. No trouble with moves like that. Kokoro just composing himself on the second of the blue volumes, and then he'll launch into the upper section on the black triangles. Plenty of encouragement, I should add, from everyone in the crowd for Kokoro. Really nice to see. Austrian team down there cheering him on. Kokoro now onto the honeycomb volume, and potentially the first man to top this route here in the semi-finals. I called it earlier on when Josh Levin was with me earlier and said I thought it could be topped, and it won't be topped. Conditions very, very difficult here in Xiamen in the semi-final route. In the men does not get topped, and sadly we do not get a chance to see the women climb on theirs. This was Kokoro on the big jump out. Absolutely cruised this move. No problem at all. Never looked in doubt. This was a bit higher up on the honeycomb. You could see then just how pumped he was getting. A bridge too far, that move. Once again struggling to get himself untied. One of the belayers giving him a hand. There we are, you can say, as I said a couple of times, you can't get much closer to the action than that. And we're just hanging on for the results to be confirmed from the judges. It's going to be another potentially fascinating final in the men's. Lots of so-called specialist boulderers through. And there we see it, Kokoro Fuji just did enough, 40 plus season 2 in 8th place. Jong Won-chon, Tomoa Narasaki, Stefano Gasolfi, Haibinku, Feria Samoa back in the finals. Yufei Pan, looking forward to seeing him in action. Chiro Koronaga and Kokoro Fuji, your top 8. 3 Japanese climbers through. They're beginning to take over the lead world like they did with the bouldering. The final, that promises to be a bit lower down the order. Some disappointing results. Yoshiyuki Ogata, Donovan Skofic might have expected to be about higher up. Max Rudiger's been in great form. No joy today. And there you can see 22nd place, Romain de Grange. He dropped it before he even got to move up to the big blue volumes of Marcello Bombardi. Disappointing day for him, 23 plus. Well, more than 3 hours after it started, the semi-final is done here in Xiamen. We hope to be able to bring you the finals later, weather permitting. In the meantime, it's the speed finals, so hopefully see you for both of them.